November 6, 2023 legislative session of Anne Arundel County is called to order. Please ensure all phones and electronic devices are set to silent. Ms. Hummer will lead us in prayer tonight.
Yes, this evening I would like to welcome Pastor Valdez Snipes from Mount Zion AME Church, and she's going to offer the invocation for us, please, if everyone would please rise.
Let us pray. To our God, the creator of the universe, the wise and loving one, the one in the name of the higher power in which you believe, I come with a heart filled with gratitude and thanksgiving, thanking you on behalf of all who have gathered here today. We acknowledge your presence and seek your guidance as the great people have come who have been elected and appointed to serve the people of Anne Arundel County. We are grateful for the opportunity to come together, share ideas, and work towards common goals that will move Anne Arundel County to higher heights as decisions are made to better the lives of all citizens. I pray each council member be effective in their work, pure in their intentions, and gracious in their dealings with all people. We gather as a diverse threads, and I pray true unity be the tapestry that binds us all together. Just as the night sky is adorned with stars of varying brilliance, so are those gathered here today adorned with unique strengths and insights. I pray through the threads of unity, we weave a fabric of collaboration that is resilient in the face of challenges and vibrant in its celebration of our shared aspirations. God, let us be reminded that while we may come with diversity and beliefs, that we are united by the desire to create positive change in our local communities, in Anne Arundel County, in the state of Maryland, and in the world. I pray this evening that the agenda will be fruitful and for the common good. I pray for wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, strength and courage to do what is right and good, a sense of welfare and true needs of our people, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement. May your truth be revealed. May your light shine brighter. May the voices of those most silenced be heard loud and clear. May good and right decisions be made. Through this governing body tonight, let there be peace in every aspect of this meeting. Amen, amen, and amen.
Thank you, Pastor Snipes. Now the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Madam Secretary, please read the ethics statement.
The Ethics Commission has asked that I advise you that under certain circumstances, members of the public may qualify as lobbyists when they testify before the County Council. If so, the law requires that certain information be filed with the Ethics Commission. The chair of the Ethics Commission has asked that those who wish to testify in any form review the general information on lobbying sheet located on the Ethics website under Forms and Publications. If there are any questions about lobbying requirements, please contact the Ethics Commission at 410-222-4413.
So we're now going to open up invitation to the audience. This is an opportunity to speak briefly on any subject that is not on the printed agenda. So if there's a piece of legislation that we're going to discuss, this is not that window. This is for stuff that is not on that agenda. So if you have a few words to say, please come forward. We'll limit your time to 2 minutes. We do have, Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimonial tool?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the council, one submission was made. Everyone received a copy. It's included in a summary that's posted online and will be added to the meeting record.
And I believe there were a couple folks who had signed up in advance. If they can please come forward. Shelley Hartford. Is she here? Okay. Is there a Tyson Graves? No Tyson Graves? Kurt Svensson? I feel like I got a yellow star when I said that because I'm always screwing up your last name, and they had me practice beforehand. So please, you have 2 minutes, and
Okay.
state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Kurt Svensson. I live in Arundel, Maryland. The purpose of my testimony is to express my concern that despite the lip service to the contrary, the process leading up to the introduction of county legislation is often lacking public engagement and transparency. A clear example of this was seen in the process leading up to the introduction of the Schools Adequate Public Facilities Legislation, Council Bill 5223. The school APF group met for over 2 years in preparation for this legislation, yet its membership was a mystery, and the county website provided no interim reporting related to this group's work. I was eventually able to obtain access to this information in March of 2023, but only after a Public Information Act request. The work group's final report was issued in May of 2023, but was not posted on the county website until July 5th, a few days after the public hearing and final vote on the eventual legislation. This fact was confirmed in response to another PIA request. The first public hearing for this bill was timed to fall on July 3rd, tucked between a weekend and the July 4th holiday. The final vote was taken that same night, ostensibly to avoid any potential delays due to the council's impending August recess. This is not an isolated incident. Now there's Bill 7823, but that's a subject for later tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Please be seated. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak on a subject that is not on the printed agenda? Please come forward at this time. We will close the public hearing after this panel. Ms. Johnson? All right. We'll start from my right and move to the left. This is the final invitation, so if after this, these panel speaks, we're going to close open invitation to the audience, so just FYI. Go ahead.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, council members. My name is David Dahl. I reside in Curtis Bay, Baltimore, Maryland. I recently had a conversation with a Republican who claimed that the difference between libertarians and Republicans is weed and homosexuals, whatever that means. I would just like to ask my colleague on the right, who might be watching on YouTube later, to listen to how we are not all the same on the conflict in Palestine and Libya. Or, I'm sorry, Palestine and Israel. So 75 years of systematic gentrification and genocide of the native population of Palestine. And we don't see anything from the right condemning that. And I had hoped that at least we would see our friends on the far left speak up against these atrocities, just as they once protested in the streets against the senseless killing of Iraqis. We were shouting, no blood for oil in the streets. But today those voices are calling for war against nuclear Russia and dare cry foul when the evil terrorist organization Hamas releases its pathetic arsenal in a humiliating rage after witnessing their people systematically eradicated like bugs for generations. Since I don't see anything from the left or the right condemning tens of thousands of people losing their lives over the last 75 years, I guess I will be irrelevant here and speak my own speech, or actually I will speak from Dr. King, I'm sorry. If other civil rights leaders for various reasons refuse or can't take a stand and have to go along with the administration, that's their business. But I must say tonight that I know that justice is indivisible, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am?
My name is Ariel Mayberry. I'm here on behalf of the SIA, Severn Improvement Association, specifically to speak about a workforce housing project to take place on a community in Severn on Queenstown Road. Our biggest concern with this is not about the idea of workforce housing and the positive change and what it's doing for the county. I think that we all agree that that is a good thing, but about some of the geographic locations that these housing projects may be taking place in. Specifically for Queenstown Road, our concerns really surround the increase of traffic. Our small Queenstown community spans over about 2 miles. It's a very old historic community. There are a lot of environmental concerns with watershed. Preliminary plans for this project and a drafted map shows it really water runoff into several backyards that this project is abutting, as well as a myriad of safety concerns. So we're expressing our concerns about this specific project's geographic location in regards to Queenstown Road. And as I stated, it's not, we're for workforce housing, but as we mentioned in prayer, doing, for the common good. So we would like to voice that tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's your coalition back there in the back?
Yes, those are also community members of the Severn Improvement Association. Yes, sir.
All right. Ms. Johnson?
Julie Johnson, P.O. Box 6634, Annapolis, Maryland. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a few comments tonight regarding the importance of all of our citizens becoming involved in the rezoning process. Much to the surprise and lack of knowledge of many people in the county, they don't know what was going on in 2020 and 2021. But there were people who were working hard someplace trying to develop the land use booklet. That lay out the policies, how are we going to use the land? Are we going to put warehouses here, or do we need housing, or do we need more commercial, and so on? And it's a 2-volume book, and it's on sale for $110. So I know you're all going to rush out and buy a couple of copies for yourself and your best friends. However, the public library's reference shelf has those, available for you to look at the hard copy. Now, if you're tough with those computers, you may have skills beyond mine, so you can make those, multi-layered things work so that you can really understand them. But it's really important that you find out what's going on, because once they pass those policies, the next step is the region operation. And in the region, you start making plans for what the zoning laws are going to be. So you want to attend those meetings. You want to make sure that the people in planning and zoning know that you want to attend those meetings, and you want clarity and precision, and you want to remember the citizen input is number one. Number two, participation, preservation of the things that we value. Some of you are old enough to remember, and some of you may be too young to have ever heard the song. But there's this wonderful song by Joni Mitchell 50 years ago called "They Paved Paradise and They Put in a Parking Lot," because she came from Canada and this was her first time to perform in Hawaii, and she wakes up in the morning because it was late incoming plane, and there it is. She rushes to the window and there's the beautiful mountains and there's the parking lot. So it's important that when you plan, preserve the things that brought us here. And that's the next one. Next week, you'll get to hear about the doom loop.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, I didn't know you were trying out for American Idol as well, so grateful. Please be seated. The invitation to the audience is now closed. Is there any item any council member would like to place on the agenda? Seeing none, may I have a motion that the partial reading of any bill, resolution, amendment to a bill or resolution or minutes constitutes the reading of the whole?
So moved, Councilwoman Pickard.
All right, is there a second? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Motion carries. Madam Secretary, please read the minutes of October 16, 2023.
The County Council meeting was called to order by Chair Smith at 7 p.m. It was opened with the invocation given by Mr. Volke and was followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. The meeting was held in the County Council chambers in Annapolis, Maryland.
We have a motion to approve the minutes of October 16, 2023.
So moved, Allison Pickard.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Minutes of October 16th stand approved as read. Madam Secretary, please read the title of the bills to be introduced this evening.
Bill number 8423, an ordinance concerning subdivision and development, zoning, boards, commissions, and similar bodies, finance, taxation, and budget, public works, Odenton Town Center Master Plan. Bill number 8523, an emergency ordinance concerning zoning, general provisions, uses and structures, temporary uses. Bill number 8623, an ordinance concerning subdivision and development, zoning, development requirements for particular types of development, redevelopment.
All right, Madam Secretary, please read the title of the resolutions to be introduced this evening.
Resolution number 4823, resolution approving the determination of certain improved county-owned property known as a portion of Magathy Bridge Road, parenthesis, adjacent to the Early Heights Volunteer Fire Company, parenthesis, in Severna Park, Maryland, as surplus property. Resolution number 4923, resolution urging the United States Congress to renew and extend the Affordable Connectivity Program.
All right, may I get a motion to suspend the rules to change the order of the agenda to hear and vote on resolutions number 4023, 4523, and 4723 first this evening?
So moved, Allison Pickard.
Is there a second? Second. All right, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on the motion to change the order of the agenda.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter. Aye. Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volke.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The motion to change the order has been passed.
All right, thank you. Madam Secretary, please read the title of resolution number 4023.
Resolution number 4023, resolution approving the application to the United States Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs for a grant under the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grant Program, Federal FY 2023 local solicitation, and recognizing the county executive's authority to act in connection with the grant.
Mr. Hunt?
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me at the table, I have Grace Tidings from the Health Department. So we discussed this resolution previously, and at the work session, this would approve the application for this grant in the amount of $160,297 for the FY23 grant to be received in the county's fiscal year 24 budget. A portion of, I can run through the breakdown real quick. But a portion of the funds, it's all flowing through the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council to the Adult Drug Court Program for treatment case manager and paralegal staff. Some of it also goes to the Partnership for Children, Youth, and Families to fund a juvenile reentry coordinator and fund violence intervention strategies, as well as the Sheriff's Office for a mobile app that will increase transparency and information sharing among law enforcement and communities. We're happy to answer any questions and would urge your favorable support.
All right, any discussion on resolution 4023? All right, seeing none. We'll now open the public hearing on resolution 4023. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony, online testimony, through the online testimonial tool?
We did not receive anything ahead of time, Mr. Chair.
I don't see anyone that has signed up in advance. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this resolution, 40-23? All right, seeing no movement. Public hearing on resolution 4023 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of resolution 4023.
Resolution number 4023, resolution approving the application to the United States Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs for a grant under the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grant Program, Federal FY23, local solicitation, and recognizing the county executive's authority to act in connection with the grant.
All right, any final discussion? Seeing none. For those that are paying attention, we did have a work session on some of these bills and resolutions, so we, in advance, had discussions on them. We have to go through a specific process, including inviting the audience to speak on different pieces of legislation. So if you see us sort of going through these procedural things, it's intentional to make sure we check that box so that you all have an opportunity to weigh in on it. But it doesn't mean that we have not read into it or understand what's going on. So just letting you know in advance. Madam Secretary, please read call the roll.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Resolution number 4023 has been passed.
All right, Madam Secretary, please read the title of Resolution number 4523.
Resolution number 4523, resolution approving the application of Land Preserve LLC to sell an agricultural land preservation easement to the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation on 126.235 acres in Davidsonville, Maryland.
Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ethan Hunt for the administration. I also have Lynn Miller from the Office of Planning and Zoning and Lori Klossmeyer from the Office of Law. This resolution was also discussed at the work session in October. Land Preserve is selling a agricultural easement to the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation in Davidsonville. State law requires the county governing body to advise the foundation as to its recommendation of approval or disapproval of the application. Our Office of Planning and Zoning and the County Agricultural Preservation Advisory Board have recommended approval of this, and we would urge your support as well, and we're happy to answer any questions.
And the goal was to preserve that 126 acres that's being sold to that foundation.
Correct, for an easement.
This is District 7, right? Davidsonville?
Yes.
District 7?
Yes.
And the council representative is good with that?
Yes.
All right. Just checking. Any other, seeing no additional lights? We'll now open this to the public hearing on Resolution 4523. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimonial tool?
We did not receive anything ahead of time, Mr. Chair.
All right, no one signed up in advance. Anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on 4523 at this time? Seeing no movement, public hearing on Resolution 4523 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Resolution 4523.
Resolution number 4523, resolution approving the application of Land Preserve LLC to sell an agricultural land preservation easement to the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation on 126.235 acres in Davidsonville, Maryland.
Thank you. Any final discussion? Seeing no light. Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Resolution 4523.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Resolution number 4523 has been passed.
All right, and finally, Madam Secretary, please read the title of Resolution 4723.
Resolution number 4723, resolution appointing a member to the Anne Arundel County Ethics Commission.
All right, Ms. Schultz.
Thank you. Kaylee Schultz from the County Executive's Office. Resolution 4723 appoints Brian Conrad to serve a remainder of a term of April 30th, 2025 from the previously vacated seat of Corinne Fitzgerald. This is the second resolution in a two-part process. This was a recommendation on behalf of the County Council, so I appreciate your support this evening.
Thank you. Any comments from the council? All right, see no lights. We'll now open the public hearing on Resolution 4723. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimonial tool?
We did not, Mr. Chair.
All right, and I don't see anyone that signed up in advance as well. Anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on Resolution 4723? All right, seeing no movement, public hearing on Resolution 4723 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Resolution 4723.
Resolution number 4723, resolution appointing a member to the Anne Arundel County Ethics Commission.
Any final discussion? Seeing no lights, please call the roll.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Resolution number 4723 has been passed.
Thank you. All right, now we'll continue with our ordinary agenda. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 6923.
Bill number 6923, an ordinance concerning zoning, general provisions, amendments to comprehensive zoning ordinance.
Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me at the table is Christina Pompa from the Office of Planning and Zoning and Kelly Kenny from the Office of Law. This bill has been discussed and amended at the past couple of meetings. It implements a 2018 charter amendment by establishing a process for posting outdoor notice signs prior to introduction of an amendment to a comprehensive zoning ordinance that's not requested by application or proposed by OPZ. This is a council process. We would ask that you pass this bill tonight, and we're happy to answer any questions.
All right, and just for public general knowledge, this bill, as mentioned with the summary that was previously stated, we passed an amendment here for the county charter here, was it 22 or was it 2018? 2018. So essentially, comprehensive rezoning is a once in every 10 years sort of process that occurs. Actually, did you want to summarize this? Because since the professionals are at the table.
Happy to do that.
Yes.
Christina Pompa with the Office of Planning and Zoning. Thank you very much, Chair Smith. Yes, comprehensive zoning comes around in the county every 8 to 10 years. The county, through the general development plan, which Ms. Johnson talked to you about in the opening comments, was adopted by the County Council in 2021. It divided the county into 9 regions. Comprehensive zoning for the first 3 regions will likely be coming to the council in January of 2024. Comprehensive zoning applications are being taken right now for regions 1, 3, and 9, and 5, 6, and 8 will start next year.
Thank you. Any additional comments from council members? Seeing no lights. All right. I'll now open a public hearing on bill number 6923. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimonial tool?
We did not receive anything ahead of time, Mr. Chair.
All right. I don't see anyone that's signed up in advance on this bill. Anyone wishes to speak on 6923? All right, we're going to close the public hearing after this panel. I see no additional movement, so, sir, over to you.
Matt Minahan, Chair of the Growth Action Network, 3651 First Avenue, Edgewater, Maryland. You've heard from Gann several times on this bill. Thank you very much to particularly Councilwoman Ledbetter for advancing the 15-day notice period for zoning changes. Thank you to the council for your help on that, and also for making sure these get posted to the council website. We are still disappointed that you couldn't figure out a way to get written letters out to the neighbors. 15 days and a posted sign is insufficient if you live in the back of the property and never drive that street, if you're traveling during that time. We believe strongly that all the neighbors should be entitled to receive, particularly given the stakes of what's involved here, that all the neighbors ought to be able to receive a written notification, as they are with every other development application that occurs. It seems like the council is anticipating a large influx of such appeals, and that may well be true. But it's not the reason to undermine the legitimate interests of the neighbors in favor of the convenience of the county staff. So understand time is short to amend this bill. It's probably too late to amend this bill. But we think that the neighbors' right to know should take precedence here. One further note, I remember the 129 amendments that got passed with little scrutiny to the Plan 2040 bill. It appears that councilmanic courtesy prevailed with little or no opposition to these 129 amendments. And while we're thrilled that you're interested in serving your constituents, it should not result in spot zoning passed without scrutiny or the consideration of the overall impact on the community. And finally, there are land use plans that are already developed and by the regional planning commissions, and we're concerned that your zoning decisions would reverse engineer the land use plans, which are intended to be longer term plans. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, public hearing on 6923 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of bill number 6923.
Bill number 6923, an ordinance concerning zoning, general provisions, amendments to comprehensive zoning ordinance.
All right, is there any additional discussion from council members on 6923? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill number 6923.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 6923 has been passed.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 7323.
Bill number 7323, an ordinance concerning subdivision and development, site development, exemptions, improvement to existing structures, cumulative floor area, and impervious surface.
Ms. Pickard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill has been amended at a couple other meetings, but I'll go ahead and say a few brief words about this bill. This bill will simplify the code and relieve property owners of the burdensome, lengthy, and expensive site development process when adding small additions of impervious surface within the 5,000 square foot limit of disturbance. This legislation does not allow the addition of impervious surface without any review by the county. The Office of Planning and Zoning, after review, would issue a decision that the criteria specified in this bill are met, and then the project would be allowed to follow the standard grading plan procedure in lieu of the onerous 40-plus items that are part of the full site development plan review. This process is more appropriate for the smaller projects that this legislation covers. That's the bill.
Admin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me, I have Eric Michelson, our environmental policy director, Raghu Badami from Inspections and Permits, Lynn Miller from the Office of Planning and Zoning, and Kelly Kenny from the Office of Law. I want to thank the sponsor of this bill. We've had lots of good conversations over the last several weeks about how best to do this. We appreciate her work on it, and we are very comfortable with the bill as amended, and urge your support for it. And we're happy to answer any questions.
All right, any, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had some questions from constituents in District 5, and just so that we have those answers on the record, for 4,000 square feet of, I believe it says floor surface, you wouldn't be able to build a house or an addition to a house that is multi-level without some kind of permitting process. All of those permits will still be required.
Yes, all permits are still required, but you probably can't build all the way to the 4,000 square feet without going beyond the limit of disturbance of 5,000 square feet. You'd have, because if you're going to build anything within the limit of disturbance is everything from where your construction trucks are and side, everything. So I'll let the professionals speak more about that, but giving it as much opportunity as possible. If you are just putting in a little patio, you might be able to get closer to that 4,000 square feet and stay within your 5,000 square feet limit of disturbance. A full house, not likely.
Would you all agree, the experts at the table? Okay, and just one final question. There was some concern with the language of the bill that impervious surface would not be required where it might, to someone looking, seem like, hey, you really should have some stormwater management. I'm sorry, I meant to say stormwater management. If you all look at it, because there is language in here that says if it is deemed, that either planting or stormwater is necessary, you would take whatever precautions for that particular site or application are best in that scenario.
Eric Michelson, Environmental Policy Officer. Yes, that's correct. We worked on the amendment with Councilwoman Pickard to explicitly address that expansion from 1,000 square feet of impervious surface up to 4,000 square feet of impervious surface. All of that would need to be mitigated in terms of stormwater management, either with plantings or with stormwater practices, and inspections and permits will do that review as part of the plan review.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
I just want to say before we take the final vote, I actually originally did not support this legislation, but I appreciate the amendment, and thanks to your cooperation and work, I will be supporting this. So thank you for making sure that got addressed.
All right, seeing no additional lights. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony We'll now open a public hearing on bill number 7323, but did we receive any testimony through the online testimonial tool?
We did not receive anything, Mr. Chair.
And I don't see anyone that signed up in advance. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on 7323? The Dean of the Chamber, Ms. Julie Johnson. Just so everyone knows, she was a teacher for many, many years, and she still teaches us today. Thank you.
Julie Johnson, P.O. Box 6634, Annapolis, Maryland. I have a particular interest in this bill, but not too much knowledge about it, about the bill per se. But I have a neighbor who lives on a beautiful hill, and she paved the 30-foot wide roadbed between her house and the neighbor, and it goes 150 feet up the hill. And at a hearing, it turned out that the engineers calculated that she had 11,000 gallons of water, more pouring downhill and onto the street, but that's diverted into a stormwater intake that goes under the road and so forth, and it winds up in my backyard. And I think there's something wrong with this. And when I talked to the people in charge, they said, well, it's pretty close, but it's not a violation. And so I'm going, it's too late to amend the bill, and I wouldn't expect you to. But on the other hand, I think that there does need to be some effort put into looking at how do we, deal with these neighbors who really go beyond the pale. I mean, it is a lot. 11,000 gallons of water is a lot. And that doesn't count about the other neighbor who decided to take a hunk of my land, put a roof over it, with a 12-foot tall fence, which is out of the zoning rules too, but that's all right. And then he pours the water off, has the storm water come down off his roof, down this new roof, because of course they put a roof on it, and then it didn't drain right from my backyard, so they hiked over and dug a trench across my backyard, took out my berm, and I've never been able to get this, get a permit to replace it. But this is misuse of the, the water, dispersion. And I know I'm not the only one, because I remember John Grasso had a constituent who had complained about a similar improper diversion of water onto their property. So I'm not the only one. It does happen. And thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
All right, thank you. All right, public hearing on Bill 7323 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 7323.
Bill number 7323, an ordinance concerning subdivision and development, site development, exemptions, improvement to existing structures, cumulative floor area, and impervious surface.
All right. Any additional discussion on 7323? Seeing no lights, please call the roll.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 7323 has been passed.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 7623.
Bill number 7623, an ordinance concerning construction and property maintenance code supplement, building permit exemptions, detached accessory structures.
All right, Mr. Volkey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've discussed this bill at work sessions and at previous meetings. There is an amendment that I will be offering in a few minutes that I will ask for my colleagues' support on. I just want to thank Ms. Rodvian. She has been there with me doing some of the lifting on the back end to get this amendment ready for prime time. So hopefully all of you should have it. It's not in the folder for some reason, but hopefully you have a physical copy of it. Basically what this does is addresses the concerns about waterfront property and clarifies that actually we are going to talk about properties in the critical area so that it's abundantly clear to anyone who is in the critical area they will still need to get a permit if they are to do any of these activities. So with that, when we get to the appropriate time, I'll ask for your support on the amendment, but this bill hopefully should be amended tonight and then back next meeting for final passage. Thank you.
Admin.
Thank you, Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration. I have at the table Andrew McCara from Inspections and Permits, Lynn Miller from the Office of Planning and Zoning, and Lori Klossmeyer from the Office of Law, and I'll hold off on comments until we discuss the amendment.
Thank you. It does have an amendment. This bill, we closed the public session at last meeting and we held the vote on the bill. to allow this discussion to take place, which produced this amendment. So at the moment, there is no public testimony right now, but once it's amended and it comes back, there will be public testimony at the next council meeting on this piece of legislation. So please read amendment number 1.
Amendment number 1, this amendment requires a permit if the structure is on property located in the critical area.
All right, Mr. Volkey.
Thank you. So again, as noted, this clarifies the language. Previously, the bill indicated that there were certain accessory structures that would be permitted in the county on lots that were not waterfront property. We've clarified that to say not in the critical area because we had some concerns from the Critical Area Commission. Ms. Rodvian and I had a nice meeting with them, and I think they seemed comfortable with this language. Mr. McCara was there as well, thank you. So we had an opportunity. I think, Ms. Miller, you were there too. Maybe? No? Oh, I thought you were. Okay. In any event, I appreciate everybody's work on the sort of the back end outside the meeting and trying to get to a place where everyone's comfortable with the language. So I think this is a good amendment that makes everyone feel like this is an appropriate way to decrease some of the permitting responsibilities that inspections and permits has, while also ensuring that we are not allowing these types of structures to go up in places that they are not allowed to go under state law. So thank you.
Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Rodvian, second.
Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank Councilman Volkey, Councilwoman Rodvian for including myself and Mr. McCara in that meeting. I was there. Yeah, we're frequently confused.
Yeah, you two don't look alike, just FYI.
But the administration does think this is a good amendment, addresses the concerns of the Critical Area Commission. We're in favor of it, so thank you.
Okay. Any additional comments on amendment number 1?
I just wanted to say thank you to my colleague, Mr. Volkey. It's always great when we can cross party lines and do good stuff, so thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no more lights, please call the roll on amendment number 1.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 1 has been adopted.
All right. Bill number 7623 will be heard again on November 20th. Okay. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 7723.
Bill number 7723, an ordinance concerning zoning, residential and industrial districts, conditional and special exception uses, natural wood waste recycling facilities.
Mr. Volkey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, as it states, this talks about conditional and special exception uses for natural wood waste recycling facilities. We have discussed this at previous meetings. We've also discussed this at work sessions. As has been identified, this would affect one property in the county, and based on the amendment that we added at the last meeting that requires that the facility be in operation as of the date that this bill becomes effective, it basically creates a very small opening for one facility to be able to expand operation, and then it further closes the loophole immediately so that no one can come behind them, and there are no other operating facilities in the county that would be able to use this, this bill to be able to do that. So that is the purpose of this. We've discussed it at length. If my colleagues have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I'd ask for your support.
Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ethan Hunt for the administration. Have it with me at the table, Lynn Miller from the Office of Planning and Zoning and Lori Klossmeyer from the Office of Law. The administration can't support this bill as it would circumvent the intent of the special exception use requirements, as well as the special exception procedures and process for approval, as well as allowing expansion of a special exception use without approval of the administrative hearing officer. I would also eliminate many of the special exception requirements for a natural wood waste recycling facility that are in place to minimize adverse impacts on surrounding properties. Lynn Miller is here and she can talk in a little more detail about why we cannot support this bill, if you would like.
Hi, Lynn Miller, Office of Planning and Zoning. As Mr. Hunt said, one of our main concerns with this bill is that it allows a particular business, which is a special exception use, to expand without having to go through the administrative hearing officer process, which is a process that's required for all of the 70-some odd special exception uses that we have in the code. So that's one issue. It would also allow it to basically not have to adhere to most of the, I think, 16 special exception requirements that apply to this particular type of use. I think the first two might still apply, but most of the requirements that are in place to try to minimize the negative impacts from a heavy industrial use like this would no longer apply to this expansion of this business. So that's also a concern. The bill also includes a fairly significant reduction in the forest conservation threshold, which again, any other business in the county would have to get this type of reduction through a modification. So there are a lot of sort of special exceptions being made for one particular business owner in the county, and that's something that's difficult for us to support.
Any additional comments from the county council? All right, seeing none. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimonial tool?
We did not, Mr. Chair.
All right. So we'll now hear from individuals from the public hearing on this bill. I don't see anyone that signed up in advance. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak on 7723? Please come forward at this time. And we'll close the public hearing after this panel, so if you would like to speak on this one, come forward. If not, ma'am, please proceed.
Good evening. I'm Kate Fox. I'm chair of the Legislative Committee of Growth Action Network, and I live in Davidsonville. Growth Action Network, we oppose this bill. It's a text amendment that clearly, from hearing the sponsor's comments, is for one constituent. Although the conditions in the bill for natural wood waste recycling facilities are very specific, the proposed changes in the code would have a significant unintended consequences. Natural wood waste recycling is an industrial operation. Including it in R1 could set a precedent for allowing this industrial operation in all residential districts. And making it conditional circumvents the special exception process required for these facilities in other industrial zoning districts. This would exclude the community from having any input into the expansion of an existing industrial facility in their neighborhood. Changing it from a special exception to use to conditional use in W2 also circumvents the administrative hearing process, while the use in W3 district is still required. Finally, there is no noise abatement requirements in this bill. Even with a 10-acre property, there will be additional noise from an expanded facility. That could have a detrimental effect on the neighborhood. We urge you not to pass this bill as it currently is written and avoid passing text amendments such as this one in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Thank you. David Dahl, Curtis Bay, Baltimore. So it was funny, I was in the back talking about how a lot of these bills are like playing SimCity, where we're filling with the code and whatnot, and that it only serves one select small group. And then, of course, right after that, I hear about the bills for one person. I was going to come out here and talk about that, but then I heard a whole bunch of hullabaloo from the executive about, well, these groups and that company and this organization and whatnot have to follow all these other rules, so of course they have to follow them too. Well, as the libertarian in the room, I'll just say that nobody should be following any of these rules. We should dramatically repeal a lot of these regulations that are killing our businesses and killing our ability, which we'll get into the bill that I want to speak on later, to build housing. And we shouldn't be playing SimCity where we fiddle with the code for this group or that area. You should have one standard rule for everybody in Anne Arundel County, and you should start allowing people to make their own decisions about their zoning, instead of coming down from on high and telling people what they can build and where on their own property. Thank you.
Thank you. Public hearing on 7723 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 7723.
Bill number 7723, an ordinance concerning zoning, residential and industrial districts, conditional and special exception uses, natural wood waste recycling facilities.
Ms. Miller, to address one of the comments, can this expand with those amendments that were previously placed on this bill? Does this have the ability to expand to other businesses or other?
Lynn Miller, Planning and Zoning. I'm not sure I understand your question, but I think you're asking if the bill could apply to other properties in the county. To our knowledge, it would not as written, and that's because there is only one wood waste recycling facility that we're aware of, at least that has an MDE permit that is on W2 property.
Sure. Okay.
One thing that's not entirely clear in the bill, though, is it talks about relocation or expansion of an existing facility. And perhaps the law office can help clarify this, but we were a little bit confused as to whether it seems to be talking about expanding onto an adjacent R1 zone property, but as written, it's not clear whether this business owner could actually relocate the business to an entirely new W1 property elsewhere in the county. So that may be something that needs some clarification.
Is the sponsor willing to address that, or?
I would simply say I see what Ms. Miller is referring to. I think it's on page 3 of the bill. At the bottom, 17, a facility does not require approval as a special exception if, 1, it's part of the expansion or relocation of an existing facility, 2, it's partially located in R1 and W2 district, and 3, the conditional use requirements listed in Title 10 are met. So I suppose that if the existing facility could find another property in the county that was R1 abutting W2 that met all the conditional use requirements of being at least 10 acres, et cetera, then I suppose, yeah, sure, that could happen. I think that's not
likely.
Correct.
Okay. Any additional comments from council members on 7723? All right, seeing no lights. Madam Secretary, please call the roll on 7723.
Ms. Rodvian.
Nay.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Aye.
6 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. Bill number 7723 has passed.
All right. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 7823.
Bill number 7823, an ordinance concerning finance, taxation, and budget, subdivision and development, zoning, Essential Worker Housing Access Act of 2023.
All right. Mr. Barron? So they're setting up a presentation that the administration is going to display on the TV screen there. So just give them a moment.
Yep. While we're waiting for the tech to boot up, let me introduce the panel. Pete Barron with the administration. I have our deputy CAO for land use, Jansen Evelyn, next to me. Aaron Karpowitz, director of ACDS. Our director of OPZ, Jenny Jarkowski, and Deputy County Attorney Lori Blair Klausmeyer, as well as from Office of Law, and Lynn Miller from Planning and Zoning. That is all we could fit at the table. We do have some other additional experts here in the room. Chauncey Hall from ACDS, Mark Burt, Rick Fisher from OPZ. So, and we got our presentation up. So we discussed this bill at the work session. There's been a lot of discussion. We have a number of folks here from the public who want their voices heard. I'm going to run through, and the team here is going to run through this presentation as quick as we can. The presentation that we gave at the work session is similar, but there are some important differences here. So this show is different than our last show, and I'm going to pass the beginning part of the presentation over to Ms. Karpowitz to talk a little bit about the crisis that we're facing.
Good evening. Erin Karpowitz, Arundel Community Development Services, and I know I don't need to tell most of you that the housing crisis in Anne Arundel County is making affordability really, really difficult for many of our residents. Rental prices have risen dramatically over the last 3 years. We did a study first in 2019, and then we updated it again in 2022. And during that time period, the rents increased about 5.7% each year annualized. So when that compounded, it means that a rent that was typical or average in 2019 of about $1,566 a month, it was then went up to $1,893 by the end of 2022. We know that all households, we know that there are about 58,000 renter households in Anne Arundel County, and regardless of their income, at least 45% of those renter households are cost burden. That means they're paying more than 30% of their income for housing, and 19% of those renter households are paying more than 50% of their income for housing. 31,000, this is evidence also that there are 31,000 households on the waiting list for either public housing and or housing choice vouchers through our partners at the Housing Commission of Anne Arundel County. The situation isn't much better on the homeownership front. Over the last 5 years, housing prices in the county have increased about 35%, while income has only risen about 17%. We see that playing out in our programs that Arundel Community Development Services operates in our homeownership program. We have about 375 active home buyers, and it's very difficult for most of those households to find a home that they can afford. I'm just going to quickly talk a little bit about some of the things ACDS is doing on the housing front, and thank you to the council and the administration for your support through things like the Housing Trust Fund, which is allowing us to do a lot of good work. But first, I just want to note that, too, we also have experience operating a moderately priced dwelling unit, moderately priced dwelling unit program or inclusionary housing program similar to what's being proposed. We administered the City of Annapolis's program for them for a couple years while they are in between staff. And so we have some experience on that front. It was a smaller program than we anticipate here in the county, but the concepts are the same. And I think with the right staffing costs, we can scale up. But we also operate a number of other programs that gives us direct experience with doing the income certifications, monitoring compliance, and also ensuring that our home buyers are eligible and available to buy through several of the programs that we operate. Just real quickly, we have over 1,550 units in the pipeline thanks to the Affordable Housing Trust Funds and other local dollars, as well as the payment in lieu of taxes that the council passed last year. We have a record 8 rental housing communities in our pipeline, creating those new units and then preserving existing units. We're doing things like expanding our rental housing voucher programs through the Housing Commission and through Arundel Community Development Services. We're also carrying on eviction prevention, key eviction prevention activities that we're able to continue on as the federal COVID funds wind down. And we're also providing assistance to home buyers. We're providing up to $50,000 in down payment and closing cost assistance, mortgage write-down assistance. Sometimes those buyers still have difficulty finding homes that they can afford, but we're there with the assistance. And then we're also in the process of developing smaller infill communities and doing some of the affordable homeownership development ourselves and ready to partner with developers and nonprofit developers.
So
you still have time, trust me.
Well, actually, it's perfect timing that went off because I'm finished, so I'm going to pass it back to Pete.
And I'm going to pass it right over to Jansen to talk a little bit about planning and the plans that the county has. So.
Yeah, I thought that bell was to tell me it's my turn to go. Again, Jansen Evelyn, Deputy CAO, Office of the County Executive. This this MPDU bill should not be a surprise to anyone. Our housing strategies have talked about this. If you look at the adopted Plan 2040, it talks about one of the policy goals is to implement inclusionary housing programs, such as, guess, MPDU program, with ACDS as the lead and OPZ to support. But even if you go back to the county's Fair Housing Plan in 2020, it also talked about establishing inclusionary zoning. But what's weird about this is as you go down the rabbit hole, you start to see that this is not the first time that Anne Arundel County has talked about in their GDP about having an inclusionary housing program. In 2009, it specifically says adopt inclusionary housing. I want to point out and take a point of privilege to note that some of the other goals that they talked about, adopting workforce housing, done. Workforce housing financial incentives, tax credits, done. It also talked about create a housing trust fund with a dedicated revenue source. And with the help of you, done. So where our hope, the administration's hope is that after discussion, public discourse, et cetera, we can also check this off our list. But I'll even go further back to when I was in high school. The prior GDP, which was in 1997, it included the recommendation under the housing policy. It says the plan recommends providing incentives such as fee credits and investigating the feasibility of an MPDU program that would provide moderately priced housing throughout the county. It also said they should also look at detaching ADUs. So we've done one of the two things they said in 1997. Let's do the second one. My daughter is 2 years from going into high school. I don't want to have to go through another generation before Anne Arundel County gets an MPDU program. But we are making progress. This, as many people in this audience have heard me say over the past several weeks and months, one of the things that, like, this bill is not a magic panacea. It won't magically just fix everything. However, one of the things that when you look over what this administration has done over the past 5 years, they've taken bold, legitimate, concrete steps to address the housing crisis, the fair housing legislation, the workforce housing zoning legislation. We have a slate of pilots, payments in lieu of taxation, specifically dedicated towards affordable housing. We have, as we've mentioned earlier, the dedicated housing trust fund. We have Council Member Rodvian's AD legislation, which was, again, passed 7-0. And most importantly, we have the school APF reform. And one of the things and some members of the council have seen, this administration has had a housing strategy that has been very intentional. And one of the things that we've been focused on is, in fact, first, open up the school, open up the county so that we can build and start to address this housing crisis. With school APF that was, again, passed unanimously by this council, now we're turning towards other recommendations from the general development plan, such as MPDUs and redevelopment. So this is another tool in the toolbox. And as that slide shows, there's more work to be done. This is not, and I hope no one believes that this was just another one and done. No, this administration and this council, we have a lot more to do. Today we introduced the redevelopment bill. I believe the Odenton Town Center Master Plan was also introduced today. And while Ms. Pompa has already stepped out, we already have the first 3 of those region plans. They'll be coming early next year. We've inundated the council with so many land use legislation, we decided to give you guys a break until the beginning of the new year, and then we'll drop the region plans. And again, I'm not going to just read the slides, but there's a host of other things that we have to do to continue addressing this crisis.
So before I jump into the bill, I want to talk just really quickly sort of about why the county executive is bringing this forward now, why he cares so passionately about this. This has been something since I met the county executive back in 2018. He was talking about housing. He was talking about creating opportunities for folks to live in this county. It's not just about building affordable opportunities for people. This is about folks who do the critical work that our businesses rely on. This is economic development at its core. Going back through his professional career, the county executive worked for the National Coalition on Low-Income Housing for ACORN, worked for and on housing issues. Just today was given the Housing Leadership Award at the Affordable Housing Coalition's event earlier today. This is something he is talking to all of us about all the time. And as Jansen mentioned, there's a lot of work left to do. This bill is a component and an important tool in the toolbox. This is by no means where the work is going to have to stop. There is a lot of work ahead of this administration and this council, and we look forward to partnering on it. So let me just sort of jump in quickly and run through the top lines on this bill, knowing and acknowledging that we do have several amendments that are going to come forward today, and this discussion is going to continue. So first, how did we create this legislation? If you were outside earlier, you heard from Senator Beidel, who talked about her time on this body back in 2004, where she brought forward a moderately priced dwelling unit bill. That bill came up a little bit short. We took a look at her legislation. It is, the core of it is sort of the basis of where we started on this legislation. We had a work group that existed and was interrupted by COVID. When we picked up the work again earlier this year, we sent around a draft to stakeholders, to you all. We took feedback. We had many meetings discussing issues, and then came forward with the county exec's proposal, knowing that this legislation has incorporated many of those suggestions, and we were going to do, I think, Mr. Chairman, you called it the sausage making process that we are here to do today. Do want to keep moving. Want to talk a little bit about how this is a proven program, how this has existed in over 700 jurisdictions. Mr. Evelyn, do you want to add a little bit of context here?
Yeah, I mean, and I know that during the rally we talked about the sausage making process, but hopefully when you have the opportunity to look at other jurisdictions and to see that with over 700 inclusive housing programs throughout the nation, at least 10 here in the state of Maryland, including the city of Annapolis, and our neighbor to our north, Howard County, which to date, and I'll look at a letter from their department head, the Howard County Department of Housing and Community Development, where since 2006, they've awarded over 450 home ownership units, as well as over 800 rental units. So we've had the opportunity to look at the examples of other jurisdictions to determine what works, what doesn't work, and the bill before you reflects the best of what inclusionary housing policies work. Thanks.
So how does this work, right? We're using a lot of terms, moderately priced dwelling units or inclusionary zoning laws. The way it works is a percentage of a new development is set aside for for essential worker housing, moderately priced dwelling unit, or an inclusionary zoning unit. Those units are sold or rented to qualified buyers or renters. The percentages in this bill are set at 10 and 15%, and I'll show you on the next slide. It's the bottom bullet, 10% of the development if it's a home ownership development, 15% of the development, if it's rental, would be set aside for moderately priced units. What developments are qualified, what developments have to do it. This bill in the proposal before you, the smaller developments, developments, and I'll show you on a graph on the next slide about sort of where the impact is, but smaller 1 to 9 unit developments would be exempt from the bill. That mid-size 10 to 19 would be required, but there are certain options and eligibilities where fee in lieu may be used. And then 20 plus units, the development must provide those moderately priced dwelling units on the site of the development. So right in where they are. This requirement does not, there are a couple of exceptions, apply to other affordable housing projects, right? So if you're doing a workforce development or a housing for elderly and moderate means, we're not going to layer on an additional requirement when you're already meeting those requirements. So we looked at the data in the development over the last 5 years. If you look at, there are two graphs on this slide, and it's pretty interesting. On the first slide on the left side of the page, it's the number of projects that were approved over the last 5 years by structure type, and size is on the axis. So like you see, the blue is single family developments, yellow is multifamily, red is single family attached. But you see lots and lots of approved projects over the last 5 years in that 1 to 5 unit approval. Not a ton of projects approved in those big units sizes, the 50, 99, 100 to 199. But then if you look at where the unit production is, where we are seeing the growth, that's all on the other side, and that's that second slide. You see, most of the units that are coming online broadly are in those bigger developments. So that sort of gives you a sense of it. And this charts and this data has been provided to the council, and if there's further questions, we can continue the discussion. Keep moving on, because I did promise Ms. Corby this would take 20 minutes, and I'm coming up on it. ACDS will qualify our applicants. Aaron talked a little bit about the experience that they already have with those programs. There are income limits for rental and for home ownership, and we're going to have some more discussion on this later in the amendment process. There's other provisions that allow sales price to be adjusted and certain qualification exemptions. Similar to workforce and elderly and moderate means, there are some key incentives here, right? This is a requirement on the development industry to do something. One of the pieces of feedback that we did get was our first draft did not include any sort of county skin in the game. And if you look at the fiscal note, the county is putting some skin in the game here, right? We are waiving impact fees for the MPDU units in that development, and we are reducing the capital facility connection charges for those MPDU units in the development. That is, if we estimate, right, based on the development trends and where we would be, that this would produce about 200 units a year. I think the most refined estimate we have now would be 197 units a year. And that is, we don't have a crystal ball. It all depends on market forces and all of those things. But estimating on the average about 197 units, that is a significant amount of capital investment that we would be sort of shouldering so that those units are produced. And then we also set a longer implementation time period. The effective date is July 1st, the beginning of this fiscal year. one, to allow the county and county staff to gear up to be ready for the program, but also to allow time for the market to prepare. So if there are, one of the questions you'll often hear is like, well, what if there's nobody able to do it? No eligible buyers or available, what happens? There is some provisions in the legislation before you where certain income restrictions can be adjusted. And if there are still no eligible buyers, ACDS and the Housing Authority do have the right of first purchase of the MPDU unit. And now that we have a housing trust fund, we have the ability to have additional revenue to do so. And then last slide I have for you is why now? I mean, there's been some talk about why can't we just wait and study this longer? We need to continue, if we have continuing housing being built and no requirement that we are doing set-asides for affordability, we're only going to worsen the crisis. Every new development that gets built is an opportunity where it denies families the ability to exist to live where they grew up or live where they work. I think one of the things that is pointed to is a really exciting development out on Riva Road, right? Hundreds and hundreds of units of new apartments, and they are all going to be market rate. There is no requirement that they will be set aside for an inclusionary purpose. So with that, I know we got a lot of discussion. We want to hear from the public that's here today. We're happy to answer any questions, and we're ready to get to work with you to do the hard work to get this bill done. So thank you very much, and we're ready to answer any questions council may have.
All right, any council members have questions at this point on 7823? Okay, seeing no lights right now. The goal was to hurry up and have the public sort of communicate with us. So we'll open the public hearing on bill number 7823. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimonial tool?
Yes, we did, Mr. Chair, members of the council. We received 49 submissions to that online testimony tool. Everybody received a copy. There is a summary posted online, and everything will be added to the meeting record.
Okay. We have a number of individuals that signed up in advance to speak on bill number 7823. So I would ask, when I call your name, go ahead and come forward. But I would also ask that to keep things moving along, again, you have 2 minutes. So when the time limit ends, please be prepared to close your remarks so that we can move on to the next individual so we can have their voices heard as well. So at this moment, we have, and if I butcher these names, I'm sorry, charge it to the head and not the heart. Is that Louisa Wayman? Mary Grace Fitzhenry, Leah Paley. I think I saw her, yeah. Sandra German. She lives in I haven't seen her in a while. I have to send her a text message. Trudy McFall. Is that Louis Coletti? Louis Coletti. Mark Mazer. And I got one more, Aaron Greenfield. All right, we'll start with, is that, and how do you pronounce that, Louisa? Okay. 2 minutes, state your name and address for the record, and then please proceed.
Louisa Wayman, 205 Victor Parkway G, Annapolis, Maryland. I graduated from St. John's College in May of 2021. Since then, I have found myself constantly struggling to get by. My apartment at that time was split 3 ways at 600 square feet, and with one roommate unable to find work, I typically found myself needing to cover about $800 of the $1,600 a month of rent, sometimes as much as $1,200. Through that time, I was working various customer service jobs ranging from $1,000 to $1,400 a month in take-home pay. That means I was spending between 4/5 and 4/7 of my total income on rent, leaving barely enough to get by. Because I was barely able to pay rent, I was unable to get a car. Because I was unable to get a car, I was unable to travel to find better work relevant to my studies. And because I was unable to find better work, I was barely able to pay rent. You can see the problem here. Due to my poverty, I struggled to find a new place to live. I considered applying for public housing, but was told it was pointless because the waiting lists were too long. I ended up hopping between 3 Airbnbs, paying around $1,000 a month each for small rooms in larger houses. At the worst, I was paying $1,100 for a room of about 200 square feet. I am now in the best housing situation I've been in since graduating from a prestigious college, living with a roommate and paying about $900 of a total of $1,800 a month for about 900 square feet while making $1,800 a month. The fact that I make twice as much as I pay in rent feels like an enormous relief. It's the most financial stability that I have had in years, and it's still cost burdened. A renter is considered cost burdened if they make less than triple what they pay in rent. I consider myself lucky at this point to be paying half. This is insane, it's unethical, and it's hurting everyone. It hurts workers who can't afford to live in Anne Arundel, and especially those who don't have a means of doing otherwise. It hurts employers for whom it's now more difficult to find employees. It hurts consumers who, for that reason, have to pay for understaffed services. Everyone in Annapolis is hurting from our broken housing policy, and it needs to be fixed by passing Bill 7823 to expand the use of moderately priced dwelling units. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fitzgerald. You're next.
Perfect. Well, I'm a little short for this. Hi, my name is Mary Grace Fitzhenry. I represent the Anne Arundel County Association of Realtors. Address is 1521 Ritchie Highway, Suite 300, Arundel, Maryland 21012, I think. I believe that we all have a common goal. We all want to tackle the housing crisis, and we all want all kinds of housing in Anne Arundel County. But it should be done in a logical way that allows for affordable rental prices, affordable home ownership, and the creation of generational wealth. The fact here is that our zoning is outdated and exclusionary, whether anyone wants to admit it or not. We used to be able to build starter homes on a smaller scale at a lower price point. Our county government is the reason why that's no longer possible. We need to start at the root of the problem and fix our zoning first. Let's start there and then move forward with MPDUs and missing middle housing, which will bring housing for all where we aren't leaving anyone behind. The residents of Anne Arundel County deserve housing done correctly, so let's tackle the housing crisis proficiently, logically, and let's do it together. Thank you.
Get cozy over here. Good evening, everyone. I'm Leah Paley, representing the Anne Arundel County Food Bank. We're located at 120 Marbury Drive in Crownsville, Maryland. On behalf of the Anne Arundel County Food Bank, I respectfully ask that you each vote favorably for Bill 7823, the Essential Workers Housing Access Act. For over 37 years, our organization, the Anne Arundel County Food Bank, has provided food and basic essentials to residents of our county who are experiencing food insecurity. Just last year, we distributed 3.4 million pounds of these essential resources to our neighbors in need. And while the work our organization is doing in partnership with over 76 different network partners is critical to providing emergency and short-term food relief, pervasive food insecurity continues to exist in communities throughout our county. And this is not because we don't have enough food to distribute. It's because we have a broken food system where equity and justice have not been prioritized, and legislative system that has created structural barriers that have made it nearly impossible for neighbors living paycheck to paycheck to obtain true economic self-sufficiency and build generational wealth. The need in our county is high, and so many of our residents are burdened due to the high cost of food and housing, and coupled with the need for an improved public transportation system and access to affordable health care. I know you're all very familiar with the ALICE report, and that we have 35% of our households in Anne Arundel County living below that ALICE threshold. And these families regularly have to choose, make the choice of eating or paying their rent, paying for medication or other survivals. And we know that hunger and poverty are driven by economic and social hardships, including insufficient wages, lack of affordable housing, inadequate health care, and more, and systemic discrimination. These factors are complex and interrelated, and to tackle them, we must pass this legislation. So thank you so much, and I encourage you all to vote favorably.
Thank you. Ms. Trudy?
Good evening. It's always a treat to be here to talk about your next wonderful housing initiatives in Anne Arundel County. And I'm Trudy McFall, 205 Scott Drive, Annapolis, Maryland, and I'm here tonight as chairman of the Anne Arundel Affordable Housing Coalition, which is 57 of us. I had time to count our list and I've submitted testimony to you that of all the groups that have unanimously and enthusiastically supported this legislation. We represent really what I'd call the affordable segment, by which we mean people serving people 60% and under, generally with not generally, always with some kind of governmental role and assistance. And I thought, in addition to saying thank you for putting us on the map with that, and Aaron told you we're going to have 1,500 new units online in the affordable field. That's an amazing accomplishment. But I thought maybe what I could do tonight that would be useful, I don't need to tell you what's in the bill. Just read Lisa Rodman's column. I thought it was great about the context for this and government involvement. And other people will talk impassionately about the needs. In the affordable housing field, I wanted to say a couple things to you. I've gone on many, as a developer of affordable housing, public hearings and conversations with people about proposed communities. And one of the things that people deeply resent about affordable housing isn't who it's to be served, it's who isn't going to be served, because 60% of median income does not meet it still leaves people out of the market. And there's really very little, except the kind of things you're trying to do here to serve people. It makes between 60 and 75%. That's going to serve that next level of they still need housing. They don't need as deep a subsidy as the 60%, but they need housing, and they feel they deserve housing being priced out of the housing market too. So I think that's a great asset of this program. And the other thing is, can I just finish this sentence?
Please summarize.
I'm sorry, because I thought this one's we're in our affordable field, we're forced really by the programs and government policy at the state level to create communities that typically are between 60 and 120%. They're large and they're typically all lower income people. And nobody would probably really love that as best social policy for the country, but it's what we have and it's what we produce. This program, as you know, allows you to begin to do scattered site, mixed income, a much better way to deliver housing for people of all incomes. And they can be smaller developments, larger developments. So I just wanted to say it really is you've done a great job with the affordable. And this is, to me, this is the next perfect fit for the rest of another segment of people priced out of the market.
Amen.
Thank you. Sorry I went over.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. Aaron Greenfield here on behalf of the Maryland Multi-Housing Association, 11155 Dolefield Boulevard, Owings Mills, Maryland. We represent, we're a statewide trade association with 41 companies and 111 apartment communities and nearly 29,000 dwelling units in Anne Arundel County alone. You have our written testimony outlining our concerns, and we do request a work group of some sort, not to slow this down, but to get this right. I think there's an opportunity here to get this right and make it work well. I want to thank the administration for their passion on this issue, and in fact did accept our initial comments and made some changes to the next draft of the bill, which is before you. So I very much appreciate that. I also want to thank Councilwoman Pickard for her engagement on these issues. My specific concerns, and I don't mean to bore you, but to get into a little bit of the details of the bill, which I think are really important here. The eligibility provision at 1712-106 indicates that the certificate of eligibility is valid for 3 years. We're concerned about that length of time and would urge that it's a 1-year eligibility period. The rental of MPDUs under 1712-109, again, give the administrator a tremendous amount of authority to set these rental rates. There needs to be transparency and appeal process. Rental rates can be dynamic, and there are a number of factors that are considered, and we would encourage that those rental rates are set at least twice a year. In terms of the review of rental rates, the provision allows for when a household becomes ineligible during the lease term, a housing provider must continue to house them, and the next available unit must be leased to an eligible household. We think this places an unfair burden on the housing provider. The bill should allow for the termination of the tenancy for those ineligible households. The renewal of the extension of the lease, it just simply is not industry practice to recertify income at a lease renewal. So we would say that that needs to be looked at, the eligibility, and then the information to be provided is finally, the bill requests a tremendous amount of paper and leases and lease renewals and income certifications, and we think that should be scaled down. It should be only when requested by the administrator. Thank you.
Sir?
My name is Mark Mazer. I live at 752 Dividing Creek Road in Arnold.
It's on now.
Is it on?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So in general, I very much support this bill, but there's some caveats I'd like to discuss and a little bit of gristle in the sausage. So, first of all, we're talking about essential workers. So I'm going to just pose some questions kind of rhetorically. What are you going to do about an out-of-town recruit who's not a resident for 1 year or more, who's not employed by the county but wants to come here and work as a nurse or a fire person, for example? How are you going to house that person? You already have 3,400 people on the waiting list. How are you going to accommodate actually recruiting essential workers into the county under this bill? I don't see it, and I've read it several times. Number two, and my friend here just brought it up, what happens if a qualified worker is no longer a qualified worker and fails the eligibility test after the initial or during the first 3 years? What's the process? That really needs to be specified. Are you going to evict that person? Are you going to make place for somebody who's actually a qualified worker who can continue to provide essential service to this community? That's not answered in the bill, and I really think it needs to be answered. And then, is an income means test enough? I'm not so sure. For example, if somebody in Peoria, Illinois, or somebody in Edgewater has $1 million in the bank, invested at 5%, they're making $50,000 a year right there. They've passed your income means test, but their overall wealth that they possess perhaps doesn't prohibit them from actually purchasing a unit in Anne Arundel County. So I'm just asking you to consider that the income means test may not be enough. You may need to actually consider how much assets somebody really has. To help actually make sure that people who are essential workers actually can provide service to this county. Why is there a 40-year and a 20-year rule? I think that these units should be actually designated in perpetuity forever. Otherwise, the problem will only get worse over time. And the expiration of a control period will only result in a future shortfall of MDPUs, okay? So please consider the fact that these units should not extinguish in 20 or 40 years. They should be here forever, not just for the current generation or the next generation. Next, I'd like to go really quickly over to the fiscal.
Please summarize.
The fiscal note. We're talking about over $5 million of debt. That's a shortfall, and so how are we going to actually pay for it? I don't hear a plan. What's the budgetary concern? What are we going to do about it? There's over a $3 million loss in MDPUs, which will accrue from the exemption from the developmental impact fees.
Thank you,
but that's not acceptable. We need to know exactly in the budgetary process how this is being paid for. You know, don't raise our taxes without looking at the budget and making sure that you have the money to actually proceed with this to ensure the infrastructure needs for the people we're going to be bringing into this community. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Please return to your seat. Thank you all. That was Mr. Greenfield, right? The last one? Who was that? That was Mazer? Oh, okay. Make sure you get his information. He actually had some really good comments there. I took notes. You did? Okay, good. Let me get Mary Groven. I'm going to throw in Janice Jones Oden. Ava Frederick. There's Dr. Linda Bonner. Eugene Peterson. Let's see him. Okay. Mr. Savinson. Did I say that right? And finally, Bonnie Henderson. All right, please remember 2 minutes. The alarm will go off, and then please summarize once you hear that alarm. All right, ma'am, over to you.
Hi, I'm Mary Arundel, Chair of the Anne Arundel County Board of Realtors Legislative Committee. I have over 25 years' experience in the real estate sales and property management. While we support affordable housing legislation, we have concerns about proposed Bill 7823. The bill lacks a clear definition of what an essential worker is, raising concerns about potential discrimination. Additionally, the preference given to ACDS in purchasing the units may limit competitive bidding. The bill doesn't address certain regulatory hurdles in the county, like HOA and condo fees, which still can make affordability a challenge. The rental cap and the price point need closer scrutiny to align with the market realities and the bill's goals. The control periods for home sales and rentals appears to be excessive. In our pursuit of addressing housing affordability, it is imperative that we do so in a manner that promotes fairness, equal opportunity, and long-term stability for all residents. I implore you to seriously consider these concerns as you review Bill 7823, ensuring that it serves the best interest of our community. We must also consider potential unintended consequences. Without clear definitions and rigorous oversight, there is a risk that this bill may inadvertently discriminate against certain groups or unintentionally limit access to housing opportunities. I appreciate your dedication to addressing the needs for affordable housing and look forward to your thorough review of the proposed bill by taking into account the concerns and questions raised by the community. It is crucial to ensure that proposed Bill 7823 truly benefits all residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Janice Jones Oden, 8281 Kramer Court, Glen Burnie. In my day job, I'm a CAO for the City of New Carrollton. In my work that I do here in Anne Arundel County, I'm on the Board of Leadership Anne Arundel. I serve as the Legislative Chair for the Caucus of African American Leaders. I'm also elected to the Anne Arundel County Democratic Central Committee. In 2018, I, along with several other noble do-gooders, as we called ourselves, joined the administration and worked for County Executive Stuart Pittman. At that time, I was a CECS Constituent Service Officer, and well within the time became the co-director for Constituent Services. Why do I give the preamble? Because in my first 4 days of working here, my first case that I had was someone who was homeless. He was a veteran, living in his car at the Walmart in Hanover, trying to cobble together those resources and trying to ensure that this man who'd been on a housing list for over 3 years finally found housing. We did that. But what I found out in that pursuit was that there were families in Freetown who were living with challenges, Councilman Volke, and there were families in Annapolis who had several issues. And I would later deal with that on my own in my family in 2020 when we moved into what we would call acceptable or affordable housing, a townhouse that we moved into that, unbeknownst to us, was laden with mold. And so moving into that townhouse was an eye-opener to me. Thanks to Kristen, she was able to help me get some help. It was like the flip of the, supporting constituents, and then now I had to get support myself. But what I want to say is this. This bill is a bill that speaks to your conscience as leaders. This is bigger than housing. This is about how we perceive and how we view members of this community. I want to certainly speak to a bill, House Bill 976. It's a work group. It's that came out on mold standards and remediation. Delegate Shanika Henson put this bill forth. I respect the time. The one thing I will say to add to this bill is quality control standards. Everyone should live with dignity and live in a house that is free of mold and live in a place that is respectable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ava Frederick, 1657 Eaton Way, Crofton, and I'm here today on behalf of the Anne Arundel County Youth Advisory Council. During its October meeting, the council voted unanimously to support Bill 7823. The Anne Arundel County Youth Advisory Council prides itself on being a coalition of diverse young advocates and leaders who serve as a voice for youth in Anne Arundel County. Regardless of our various backgrounds, we all share one thing in common. We are proud to call Anne Arundel County our home. Now, while the housing crisis may seem like one between current eligible homeowners and developers, it's really a problem that will be handed down to the youth, both directly and indirectly. A 2015 study links housing insecurity to higher child neglect risk, while a 2005 study shows that improved housing affordability benefits the health and grade retention of 6 to 11-year-olds. In essence, when parents can't secure affordable housing, both parents and children suffer in terms of well-being and education. In a direct sense, in 4 years, the housing crisis will become my crisis. It will become the crisis of every high schooler in this county. Now, I'm all for hand-me-downs as a child in a house of 6, but this is one thing I really don't want to be handed down. No fresh college graduate will be able to keep up with the demands of Anne Arundel County's housing market, and that, in turn, will only minimize the growth and the size of the talented workforce of the county. Simply put, we need more moderately priced dwelling units for the parents trying to make a better life for their children, paycheck to paycheck, for the children who should be focusing on their homework, not the eviction notice outside of their doors, for the essential workers, the teachers who make the backbone of this county, and for every parent and grandparent in this room whose children and grandchildren will have to face this crisis soon. We need to set a precedent with Bill 7823 and make clear what Anne Arundel County really is, the best place for all. And so, for all of the reasons mentioned, the Anne Arundel County Youth Advisory Council is in support of Bill 7823. Thank you for your time.
Eva, how old are you?
17.
Awesome. I think we're in good hands. Ma'am?
May I defer to Ms. Henderson first, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Bonnie Henderson. I live at 445 Shorkus Road in Arnold, Maryland. I'm a member of Asbury Broad Neck United Methodist Church and co-chair of ACT Attainable Housing Team. I've been working towards my dream of becoming a homeowner in Anne Arundel County since 2002. It is now 21 years later. I am a native of Annapolis, born and raised here. I had my children here. I worked for the state of Maryland for 30 years and retired. I also worked for the county for 10 years and retired. And I put my daughter and myself through college. Even after I graduated in 2006, I kept my second job so I could enter and complete the first-time home owners program through ACDS and received my certificate. I was so excited and felt like I had finally accomplished a major step towards my forever goal. Imagine my surprise when I received my pre-approval notice for a mortgage of $175,000. This news was devastating because I knew there was no way I would be able to afford a home in Anne Arundel County for that amount of money. I moved in with my two adult daughters, to get my finances in a more manageable situation. I continued to improve my credit, and then I've been approved for a home loan up to $200,000. It is now 2023. But I'm still looking for an affordable home. I think about my children and grandchildren. It has been so difficult for me. What will it be like for them? Owning your own home is one of the major ways that families are able to build wealth and pass down from generation to generation. For Black families, it is even more important because so few of us have been able to become homeowners because of historical barriers. As I drive around the county, I notice there are new developments coming up everywhere. I also noticed sale prices are $400,000 and up. How is this so? Why? Why aren't the county developers required to have some properties that are for low-income people who desire to be homeowners? Who is looking out for the people who have lived and worked in this county and make up the fiber of its cloth and cannot afford to live in it? It makes no sense to me. And I feel like the county and state leaders not concerned about the situation and about my situation. I'm at a loss for words to understand how this is possible. It is a shame that someone like
summarize.
me and thousands of other people in similar situations cannot afford to live in the county we contribute to. Together, we have the power to change the future of what happens in our county.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. My name is Linda Hannafin Bonner, and I co-chair the Anne Arundel Connecting Together housing team together with my friend Bonnie Henderson. And for those unfamiliar with ACT, it is a nonpartisan, nonprofit alliance of congregations of diverse faith and community groups in Anne Arundel County, representing over 20,000 adults. We meet people face to face, and we listen and we build relationships that create the capacity in communities for leadership development, citizen-led action, and strong relationships across the lines that often divide our communities. Earlier this year, we listened to nearly 1,500 residents to learn what the issues affecting them were. Guess what? Housing was on the top. So to act on these problems, we do research. We've listened to stories like Bonnie's and many of the others you've heard here this evening. We've also listened to those in the industry and the development group. And we want to thank the council members who took the time with us over the past month to talk with us and share their thoughts and concerns. But more importantly, last Thursday, over 425 people, ACT members, voiced their support to the Essential Worker Housing Act to be passed and for our county to take a step in a right direction. That is significant for 400 people to get together and say that. We believe that we have an opportunity in front of us right now to make a significant difference in our county. Specifically, this work will begin the steps needed to create access to affordable and rental ownership homes as a vital action to addressing the historic issues of discrimination and racial equity that currently exists within the county's housing, land use, and zoning policies. But we also want this bill strengthened so it can make greater impact. Increasing the MPDU requirements to 15% and 20% for rentals. Changing the buyout fee to 3% applied to all units built. More importantly, ensuring that the square footage of the MPD units are not reduced more than 12% and do not have substandard fixtures, appliances, plumbing, and have required energy efficiency. We know that the bottom line is that MPDUs are a proven and a critical process to begin to address the county's housing crisis, and we need this opportunity. We're in this for the long haul with you. We're not backing out.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Sir, Mr. Kurt.
Kurt Svensson, Arnold, Maryland. My written testimony identifies a number of specific provisions that need to be questioned and further reviewed, and a lot of them have been mentioned, especially in that first group. Even some of them have already been addressed in the amendments that I see. This gets back to my testimony of earlier tonight. The process leading up to the introduction of this bill lacks genuine public engagement and transparency. I couldn't take notes fast enough to keep up with that first group of 5 people here talking to you. This is a tremendous resource you have, Anne Arundel County citizens weighing in on these ideas, and they want to weigh in. I support county spending taxpayer funds on strategic efforts to make housing more affordable, both to own and to rent, especially those with low and moderate incomes. My primary concern, as a former assistant budget officer for this county, my primary concern with this bill is its lack of truth in budgeting with respect to the exemption of the capital facility connection charges and the exemption of impact fees. These fees are based on engineered estimates of the infrastructure costs attributable to new housing developments of this type. As such, these revenues are booked to specific funds dedicated for these purposes. Those infrastructure costs do not change because the county council decides to pursue the public good of reducing the cost of private developers to create certain types of housing units by granting fee exemptions. The cost of pursuing this public good should be explicitly borne by the general fund. A gentleman mentioned here, how that's a lot of money, $5.5 million in that fiscal note. I don't want our taxes going up. Guess what? Our taxes will be increased, and they should be increased for this purpose. But let's own it in this legislation. Don't hide from it by doing exemptions and saying, well, we'll sort of shoulder it. That's not good enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Please return to your seats. The next group panel, can I have Deborah McGee? Is there a Deborah McGee? Oh. Let me get Thomas Martson. And Jen Roman. Sierra Carter. So Abby Root. Where's she at? And Isaac Ambruso. All right, Ms. McGee, 2 minutes. The alarm will sound, and please summarize.
Okay. Hi. I want to express support for Bill 7823. I want more affordable housing in Anne Arundel County because I believe the people who work in the restaurants, shops, daycare centers, and schools that serve all of us will be good neighbors, and they deserve to live where they work. A search of Craigslist shows that every two-bedroom apartment offered locally at this time is over $2,000. Experts recommend that a household spend no more than a third of gross income on housing, so a renter would need to bring in $72K in a year to afford such a two-bedroom unit. That's not within reach for a substantial number of households. People working as aides in assisted living facilities make $40 to $50K per year. TurboTax reports the average restaurant server in Anne Arundel County earns $25,000. I thought that was low, but that's what TurboTax says. Additionally, there are people with legitimate situations that reduce their ability to work full-time. The Census Bureau reports that more than 26% of non-working Americans don't work because they are required to care for a family member. In other words, there are plenty of people who work hard and serve the community and just don't make the big bucks. It is not surprising that, as Aaron mentioned, 45% of the rental households in Anne Arundel County report being cost burdened. These are our neighbors, and they are stressed. They can't afford a major car repair. They can't get a good night's sleep. They can't focus at work. They're struggling to survive. Repeated scholarly studies have shown that the creation of affordable housing does not increase crime and does not negatively affect local property value. An Urban Institute study published in 2022 found that the addition of affordable housing units in the city of Alexandria, an area somewhat similar to our own, created an increase in the value of properties located within a one-block area. So this bill is just morally the right thing to do. We live in one of the wealthiest counties in all of our very wealthy nation, and we enjoy the plethora of services that are available. The people who make these services available and who do this work deserve a shot at decent, affordable housing near their jobs.
Mr. Merchant.
Good evening. I am Tom Marston, 986 Nabbs Creek Road, Glen Burnie. I'm in support of this ordinance and propose 3 additional actions that enable greater affordability for housing and increase the type and number of units that comply as affordable. This body must consider and adopt the 21 IECC before July 24. The Maryland Department of Labor considered and approved an amendment submitted by Maryland Building Officials Association. Accept this amendment, which adds an additional compliance path, maintains the baseline efficiency, advances and reduces the burdensome cost to build, and maintains housing affordability inside a typical 30-year mortgage. Second point, provide funding for not-for-profit builders such as 501c3s, designated corporations. Compensate these builders for constructing certified Energy Star and DOE Zero Energy Ready homes, because these builders cannot receive the federal tax credit of $2,500 or $5,000. Habitat for Humanity is an example of a 501c3 builder. In addition, their homeowner guidelines align with many of your requirements in provision 7823. Finally, amplify your support for ADU housing in the county by matching the reduced fees spoken of in 7823 when such housing units are earmarked as affordable. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Ms. Roman?
Hi, my name's Jen Roman, and I live at 847 Harvest Moon Drive in Odenton, Maryland. Overall, I support this bill because I believe inclusionary zoning is important, but the bill must be made stronger, and I request the following amendments. First, get rid of the preferential treatment for county employees. As this bill stands, county employees and teachers can apply for workforce housing right away, whereas everyone else has to live or work in the county for 12 months first. I am concerned that this will create an unintentional advantage for white people who are overrepresented in our county government. They make up 78% of our school system employees and 88% of the fire department. Instead, everyone with an eligible income should have the same rules for applying. Second, keeping with an equity lens, more should be done for households whose income is not high enough to afford a home under this bill. During the pandemic, there was a great show of gratitude for our essential workers, which included not only first responders, but our grocery store clerks, child care providers, and warehouse workers, who are far more often people of color. My understanding is that in order to afford a home under this bill, a household would need to earn around $94,000. That is because the homes will be priced at 80% of the adjusted median income for a family of four. Did you know the average salary in Maryland for a grocery store clerk is $47,000, child care provider $39,000, warehouse worker $37,000? Most of my coworkers who are nursing assistants have to work at least 2 jobs because their average salary is $40,000 a year. Are these people not essential workers to you? They worked right alongside me in the hospital during the worst days of the pandemic. What are we doing for citizens who do not have a 2-earner household or don't meet this threshold? There needs to be inclusionary zoning for lower incomes too, instead of just creating subsidized housing developments that concentrate poverty. Third, increase the MPDU percentage to 25% for both sale and rentals. Let's say a developer builds 40 homes. Under the current bill, only 4 of them will be affordable and probably won't be ready until 2026. This is ridiculous. Please increase the percentages. 10% is lower than any other local jurisdiction. Finally, get rid of the fee in lieu option. It didn't work in Annapolis and it won't work in the county. Thank you.
Ms. Carter?
My name is Sierra Carter, Palmer's Avenue, Glen Burnie. I've always called Anne Arundel County home. I've been fortunate to join the Anne Arundel County Public Library in a role I enjoy, directly engaging with other county residents. I'm here today to ask for your support for Bill 7823 and for an amendment that allows all of the public service workers who work in our county to access affordable housing. I recently made the career switch to library service because I believe in the good that comes from investing in a strong community. Day in and day out, I interact with patrons, my fellow community members, facing all different types of hardships, including food insecurity and job loss, and so much more. The public library is a trusted institution that many of us have a positive connection to. I myself grew up attending the Linthicum branch almost weekly for books, CDs, movies, printing, computer access, you name it. As an employee, I've loved seeing branch regulars who have made the library part of their weekly, sometimes daily ritual. And whether it's COVID tests, this month's book club pick, or a weekly story time, many members of the community rely on the library to meet a variety of needs and connect with those around them. Many of these needs coincide with the growing inequities putting a strain on so many of us. I chose library service because it is an essential service that can provide immediate solutions to those in need without asking anything of them in return. That is almost unheard of these days. I currently have 3 jobs in order to make ends meet, which is not easy. Affordable housing would be huge for myself and my colleagues who are invested in the work that we do, and that work requires a knowledge and connection to the people we help. I'm asking the County Council to pass Bill 7823 and to include all of the public service workers who work in Anne Arundel County in this bill. Please support our essential workers and our commitment to improving and serving our communities. Thank you.
Ms. Root.
Good evening. My name is Abby Root, 1336 Chickabee Way, Odenton, representing the League of Women Voters of Anne Arundel County. The League supports Bill 7823. This bill will give workers who work in Anne Arundel County but cannot afford to live here the opportunity to own or rent housing near their workplace. The League supported Bill 7823 is based on its affordable housing and planning and zoning positions to promote and pursue balanced development that will have minimum impact on the environment and maximum long-term benefit to employment and the tax base, including provision of opportunity for affordable housing by increasing housing opportunities for people of low or moderate income. Model replaced dwelling units have worked well in other jurisdictions where low or moderate income county workers have access to quality housing at a cost that is affordable. Essential workers living in the county will have a sense of community. Their commitments will not be split between 2 counties. They will shop here or go to local health care providers. Their children will attend school here, participate in sports, and other after-school activities. It will be easier for the parents who live here to attend these events. Living closer to the workplace is also good for the environment because it saves on gas and wear and tear on cars. The League urges the Council to vote in favor of Bill 7823. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Isaac.
Good evening, council members. My name is Isaac Ambrusa, and I'm here on behalf of the Anne Arundel County chapter of the Maryland Building Industry Association. I want to thank you for the opportunity to discuss housing this evening. MBIA represents the interest of over 1,300 member firms and 100,000 employees, including home builders, remodelers, developers, and affiliated professionals. MBIA is dedicated to understanding this legislation and its intended impact and unintended consequences. We've utilized our extensive network of practitioners throughout the state and neighboring jurisdictions during our data gathering efforts for evaluating this bill, and we have urged and continue to urge that this council pause this bill and come to the table for a broad discussion on housing availability. As practitioners, we know that this is a complicated issue that requires study and collaboration to solve. It requires being bold about housing policy. As currently written, MBIA does not support Bill 78-23, but we strongly support providing more housing to make housing attainability in the county possible. A few of our concerns about this bill include, but are not limited to, building permits in the county sliding, down over 30% in the last 4 years, hastening a downward trend of the past decade, a decline in building activity that will be exacerbated by the additional hurdles this bill presents. Active residential development activity in the county is down, the pipeline is short and not getting backfilled. The decline in development activity will only worsen because of the additional challenges this bill brings. The county's comprehensive rezoning process has been slow, which not only further hindered residential development, but also limited new housing opportunities. Housing reform and legislation of this magnitude should not be implemented in a vacuum. It should be considered during the review of each region plan and ultimately comprehensive rezoning. The county lacks the necessary zoning to meet the current and future market rate demand. If the market rate cannot be met, making housing attainable for all will never occur. Only 4.3% of the county has the necessary planned land for the high-density housing. Much of the county is zoned for low-density residential housing, and a comprehensive overhaul of the zoning code is required for any impactful change. MBIA has submitted written testimony fully outlining our concerns on this bill, and we encourage the council to engage in active discussion about housing affordability and find a true solution to this problem that will work for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Please all return to your seats. in this final group that has signed up in advance is Kevin Hines. Oh, Haynes, I'm sorry. Rebecca Tucker. Linda Davis. Delonia, Miss Delonia. Heather Cassidy. And Bridge Dumas. Okay. All right, please proceed. Mr. Haynes.
Sure, thank you. Kevin Haynes, I'm the chair of the Anne Arundel County chapter of MBIA. Address is 303 Sycamore Road, Severna Park, 21146. Thank the council for the opportunity to speak tonight. One thing I noticed listening to the testimony this evening is I've never been in this room and heard the opposition, I shouldn't say opposition, the other side, let's say, on a subject before the council, when MBIA is usually on the other side, speaking so favorably about more housing. It's refreshing, and it tells me how far apart we probably are not. We're probably much closer together on this topic than MBIA normally would be when discussing legislation. In recent years, the need for more housing has not been the discussion, but instead we've been fighting back calls to end the endless building. Many in the county believe the doors should be shut, the no vacancy sign put up. MBIA is hopeful that the tides on this discussion are changing. MBIA fully supports efforts to provide more attainable housing in Anne Arundel County, but we believe that Bill 7823 will not provide a meaningful pathway towards attainable housing for county residents. Though unintended, an inclusionary zoning or IZ program will increase the overall cost of housing in the county, widening the gap between affordable and market rate units. Widening the gap will diminish the returns of this legislation. MBIA respectfully requests that the council pause the bill, form a stakeholder group, and dive deeper into the county's current exclusionary zoning practices and development regulations. As it did when initially enacted in 1952, Anne Arundel County's zoning code relies heavily on single-family or exclusionary zoning. As a percentage, this was mentioned earlier, only 4.3% of the county's land is zoned for high-density residential use, and the vast majority of that land has already been used. According to the county's recently adopted Plan 2040, the county only has approximately 1,200 potentially developable units in the high-density residential zones. Just quickly summarize, MBIA thinks that we need a broader to this question, which is why we're asking for a group to discuss it, to study it, not to slow it down, but we believe that the returns on the investment for the county and for the county's citizens will be better if we come to the table and discuss it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Ms. Tucker?
My name is Rebecca Tucker, 2010 Eagle Landing Way, Odenton, Maryland, and I am a lifelong Anne Arundel County resident. I have also worked in this county for over 11 years for the Anne Arundel County Public Library in various positions and at many locations. I am currently a library associate at the Odenton Library. I am here asking the County Council to pass Bill 7823 and to support an amendment that includes all public service workers who work in our county, including those who work for our library system. Affordable housing is an investment in our future and in our most passionate workers. The first thing you think when I say library is probably books, but a large part of our job is also answering questions and finding information for people. I am just as likely to get a question on where to find the best crab cakes, which would be G&M and Linthicum, as I am to get a question on the newest James Patterson book. Beyond books and crab cake recommendations, we also have free events for all ages. Our Every Child Ready to Read initiative, with story times at every library multiple times a week, has helped hundreds and thousands of children develop early literacy skills to set them up for kindergarten success. At my current location, we offer regular guided painting classes, an event that would cost $40 to $60 to attend elsewhere, totally free at the library. We also have a sewing machine that customers can use inside the library. We strive to provide costly, in-demand enrichment and services for free in our communities that we care about. We are in the senior centers doing book clubs, in the schools teaching about research databases, at the park doing story time, but we cannot afford to live in those same communities. I currently share an apartment with another library employee. Our rent went up this year, and even though my half of the rent is really good for the area, it is now over 50% of my monthly income. Most people aren't going to work for the library if the only thing they care about is the money. Passion fuels our work. Living in the communities we are serving helps to maintain that passion as well as keep us in the loop of community needs and interests. Please support the bill 7823 and an amendment that includes all public service workers who work for our county, including those of us who work for the library system. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Davis.
Thank you. My name is Linda Davis, 215 Coronet Drive, Linthicum, Maryland, and I urge you to support this bill with the amendments that I'm going to talk about and with plans to address the huge need for affordable housing in our county in the very near future. So fortunately, Jen Roman gave a few of my amendments that I requested, and so I'll give the rest of mine. The all development in Anne Arundel County, this should apply to all developments and not certain developments. For example, the county executive office has said the adequate public facilities will allow development in school districts that have vacant seats and that there are 16,000 vacant seats. Ensure that the MPDUs will be distributed equitably throughout the county. Create accessible communities. Ensure that the MPDUs are not being built in food deserts or places without any access to transportation, jobs, health care, and make sure that the MPDUs are built the same, no substandard housing. They should be the same size and have the same finishes and amenities as the market rate units and not be substandard. Also, for future ideas, we should eliminate single-family zoning since it is discriminatory. Anne Arundel County has the space to currently build smaller apartment condo buildings for families, allow people of all incomes to live in the same areas, address the density issues, and have land be used that's currently in South County, explore how to reduce and eliminate Black communal displacement due to gentrification, look at appraisal discrimination, how Black homes are undervalued, create an anti-displacement fund, and allow civil rights organizations to pick the executive director for the Housing Trust. Last two ideas, create a community land trust model like they implemented in Baltimore, and create social housing like they have in California. According to an article about that, social housing that offers below market rents and keeps them off the speculative market. I urge you to pass this bill with these amendments and create plans to address the huge need for affordable housing in the very near future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is Delania Akindoyo, and I'm the proud president of ASME Local 1693, the union that represents the bus drivers, food service workers, maintenance workers, custodial staff, and the other support workers of Anne Arundel County Public Schools. I'm speaking today in support of the Essential Worker Housing Act, Bill 7823. As written, this bill includes teachers who work for the district but not the support staff like myself and the many members in my local who make our schools run. Please support an amendment that includes all public service workers who work in Anne Arundel County, including the county workers in our school, essential workers in our schools. Prior to being the full-time president of our local, I worked as the chief custodian at Rolling Oaks Elementary School here in Anne Arundel County for nearly 14 years. Like many of my fellow members, the highlight of our job is seeing the smiling faces of our children that we support every day. But sadly, it's getting harder and harder to stay in these jobs that we love because the great majority of our members don't actually live in Anne Arundel County. They come from nearby counties like Baltimore County and Baltimore City and have long commutes to and from work. Many of them say that if they had a choice, they would live in Anne Arundel County, but the apartment and rents could be upwards of $2,000, and it's hard to make the math work when some of our workers are only bringing home $800 a month. For those who do live in the county, they have to work multiple jobs in order to survive and to be able to live here. Many of them could go to other counties and make more money because they have licensed trades and CDLs, and they could work elsewhere and make more money to live other places. But they choose to work in this county, in this school district, but they can't send their children to school in this district. They love their jobs. And serving the students here. We're the ones who show up every day to open our school buildings, transport the students safely to and from schools. We feed the children here, and we do much more. Passing this essential Worker Housing Act and ensuring that school district staff can also access affordable housing will go a long way towards making it possible for our members to live and work, and continue to do what they love.
Thank you. Ms. Thomas.
Hi, Heather Cassidy, Lakeshore, Pasadena, and I work in Annapolis. Today, I'm here to urge you to support Bill 7823, Essential Housing Bill. With your help, we are making great strides in housing development for the future. This bill is one of the tools to make housing development in Anne Arundel County more equitable and create opportunities for people to live and work in the same area. As Executive Director of the Lighthouse, I have seen firsthand the critical need for housing in our county. The Lighthouse served over 2,700 people struggling with housing insecurity last year alone, and the need for our services continues to rise. In recent years, we have been seeing more middle-income households with annual earnings around $60,000 lose their housing. We are watching the gap get wider, and once someone loses their housing, it's exponentially harder to get back on stable ground. In the past 2 years, we are seeing a significant uptick for Lighthouse services within the moderate income tax bracket. They are asking for help with finding a suitable housing solution, eviction assistance, while also experiencing food insecurity and the inability to cover the costs of other basic needs. This type of legislation has been successful creating mixed income communities in other locations. This bill is a new tool for moderate income households who have incomes higher than the affordable housing income levels, but who have also had great difficulty in finding housing they can afford in our county. This bill targets essential workers who live or work in or for the county, such as Anne Arundel County public school workers, police, fire, our nonprofit workers, including many of my own team at the Lighthouse, serving an extremely important need in our county. This legislation will not only create more housing for moderate income households, but also will grant access to a greater choice of housing locations throughout the county, while providing more equitable and fair housing opportunities. In my day job, not only am I Executive Director of the Lighthouse, but I am also a member of Anne Arundel Affordable Housing Coalition, and I am president of the Coalition to End Homelessness here in Anne Arundel County and Annapolis City.
Thank you. Thank you all. Please return to your seat. All right. So that ends the list of folks who had signed up in advance. If there is anyone, we have 6 seats here in the front, who wishes to speak on this bill, please come forward at this time. All right. Please state your name and address for the record. Remember, you'll be limited to 2 minutes. When you hear that bell, please summarize. I don't want to cut anyone off, but we definitely want to proceed through the rest of the agenda.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. Matt Minahan, Chair of the Growth Action Network. We came here tonight to support this bill, and as I listen to this testimony, we leave here tonight enthusiastically supporting this bill and hope that you will too. There are lots of reasons to change it, to amend it, to fix it, but frankly, if you let it get bogged down in the sausage making, you'll lose the flavor of what this bill is intended to do. These testimonies tonight have been powerful, have been moving, and I hope they have touched you as deeply as they have touched me. Particular thanks to Council Chair Smith and Councilwoman Rodvian for your columns in the Capitol this week in support of this bill. Had we done this in 2004, there'd be another 4,000 additional units of affordable housing in this county. And letting this wait longer to study it to death, or make it voluntary, or worse yet, reject it altogether, would be criminal. Voluntary programs in other jurisdictions have failed to build moderately priced units, so voluntary is not the answer. And by the way, it's currently voluntary, and affordable housing is not being built. So voluntary is the wrong answer here. In 10 years, there'll be 60,000 more people in this county. That's growing at 1% per year, 60,000 more people. This bill is the right choice for a county that's growing at 1% a year. It's the right choice for a county that has a critical shortage of housing for the very people that make our county the place we want it to be. We strongly support Amendments 5 and 6. Thank you, Ms. Rodvian. And we'd like to see a higher NPDU percentage in this bill, not 10 and 15, but 15 and 20 and 25, as was testified here this evening. And we'd also like to see lower income thresholds. At 100 and 110%, these thresholds are too high for what the county needs. So who do we want to be as a county and as a community? We have a choice in this bill, and I hope you will make the right one. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir. Good evening, David Dole. Lost me. Oh, thanks. Echo. Hi, my name is David Dahl, Curtis Bay, Baltimore, Maryland. I lived in affordable housing until I was 13, and my mom got remarried. We came to Savannah Park. I've lived there a few times in my adult life, but for the most part, I've lived in low-income housing. I would just like to say that I'm not going to be speaking on behalf of this bill. I really loved a lot of the testimony from a lot of you guys earlier. You spoke on very good points, and I think that these things need to be addressed. I remember Malcolm X talked about the difference between the fox and the wolf is somebody who comes to eat you, but you can see very clearly, and the fox comes at you with a smiling face. I think that this bill is just letting the fox into the hen house. We seem to think that the government can solve the problems that it itself has created. We talked about how it's very hard to afford housing. That's because we've had a massive amount of inflation. We've seen the largest transfer of wealth from the poor to the corporate elite in U.S. history within the last few years. A lot of that because of the COVID funds. The zoning regulations that we're talking about rolling back here, like I don't understand why it's taken this long to talk about this and why it's only happening for this specific thing. Like when we talk about our zoning laws, like they shouldn't be wrapped up in special little projects. We're not playing Sim City here. Like we citizens are not your playthings to be moved around. We need to have a system. Well, we talked about voluntary to build these homes, but it's not voluntary because there are countless regulations that are preventing people from building affordable homes, whether it's the regulations on what kind of materials we can use or where we can put them, going back to the zoning laws. So these are the things, like the gentleman that was sitting here earlier, these are the things we need to start looking at, rolling back the regulations, because when the government's boot is on my throat and you lift it just slightly and then you tell me that I have to be grateful for like you undoing regulations, but at the same time, of course, adding all this expenditures that we're not going to be able to afford. But like, you don't have that right. We have the right to make our own decisions on what we want to do, and we can fix our problems a lot better than you can, and 150 years shows that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kylan Mayberry. I live at 792 Queenstown Road in Severn, Maryland. My first job, I was an essential employee with Anne Arundel County. I now work for Howard County as an essential employee. And I'm fully support this bill. I don't want to pretend to not to, but my concern is just what is it going to do to the people that already have homes? Like on Queenstown Road, there's proposed 10-acre, I believe the address is 796, and it's going to be workforce development housing, and it's going to be directly in my backyard. I'm all for affordable homes. It's just that what is it going to do for the communities that are already there? What is it going to do for the communities that are already there? It's going to, add traffic. It's going to add, if anything, more foot traffic. So it's just, I'm just concerned as, being a homeowner with crime and everything, I don't feel that my backyard is the appropriate place for 192 units, and it's not just because it's my backyard. My concern is just for the people who, it was very hard for me to buy my home, but I was able to purchase my home, and I fully support this bill. It's just, I think the location and that demographic kind of should be examined. That's all. I support it. It's just that I feel like with the private contractors that try to buy my property, they were able to purchase property behind my property, and they're trying to shove almost 200 units, onto my street that I live on. So it's not something that I'm opposed to. It's just I feel like the geographical issues should kind of be addressed. We shouldn't just shove, homes anywhere. That should matter. And
Thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Anne Arundel County Council, thank you for the opportunity to address the council on this important housing legislation. My name is James Spearman, and I am a resident of Arundel on the Bay. Tonight, I am speaking on behalf of the Caucus of African American Leaders, which endorsed a number of you when you were running for election. I would like to acknowledge my council. My council representative, the Honorable Lisa Rodvian, who wrote an excellent and magnificent op-ed in the Capital Gazette in support of this. Her op-ed and that of Chairman Pete Smith outlined the need for this important legislation. As a retired police officer with over 33 years of experience, I can tell you that this legislation is absolutely critical. It is changing policy that will ensure that police officers, firefighters, teachers, nurses, and other people who serve the community in their professions are able to afford to live in the county in which they serve. Developers must be required to provide a range of housing that will meet the needs of all residents regardless of their income. The Caucus of African American Leaders calls for the County Council to pass this legislation on a nonpartisan basis. Housing is a human right. Every citizen should be entitled to safe and affordable housing. The Caucus of African American Leaders will be preparing a report card on key pieces of legislation, and for this essential housing legislation, we will be basing our future support on who supports it and who doesn't. I end on this note. Housing is essential. We cannot continue to do what we have been doing in the past and expect a different result. Tonight, I call on you to unanimously support this legislation. Thank you for your opportunity.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Tollett. I'm the pastor at Asbury Broadneck United Methodist Church in Annapolis and reside in Severn, Maryland. For those of you who attended our action and 5th anniversary last week, you heard some testimony from people who live in or work in and would like to live in Anne Arundel County. And one of the things that I would say is that if you have people who are teachers and other essential workers in your county who are compelled to commute from York, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and other more affordable counties in Maryland, you have a problem. And I would like to think that Howard County, Frederick County, Montgomery County, Charles County, Queen Anne's County, Baltimore City are not more conscientious, caring, and balanced in their perspective and understanding of this need than we are in Anne Arundel County. This is not a matter of whether we can, it's a matter of whether we will. It is a matter of will. And I would just say for those who want to let market forces work, that trickle-down housing left to the beneficence of developers doesn't work. It never has, and it never will. The history in this country and in this county shows that. I'm here in support of Bill 7823 with the appropriate amendments, but let me just say this. Please don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. We're already behind time getting this done. This should have been done years ago. Let's get started, fix it and tweak it some, and understand that this is just a first step, and we will need to do more in the future. And if we harness our political will and work together, setting aside ideology and party, because none of us really care about any of that. We just want you to do your job on our behalf and get it done right. Thank you. Oh, and one other thing. The best crab cakes are at Papa's in Glen Burnie. I'm just
I don't know, G&M is in my district, but ma'am, go ahead.
Pastor, thank you so much for your comments. I'd like to share my story with the council members who have not heard it yet. And so I'd like to start off with saying my name is Deborah Gundry, and I'm a master's level clinical social worker who works in Anne Arundel County. I was born with cerebral palsy. Despite growing up in a very loving household, my disability has impacted my life in many ways, big and small. More significantly, in my work as a therapist, I need to complete notes after each session. Because of my cerebral palsy, it takes twice as long as many of my colleagues. This might not seem like a big deal, but what that means is that I'm not able to carry as large a caseload as most of my colleagues, and therefore I will not make as much as many of the other social workers I work with. Even if I didn't have a disability, I would still have an incredibly hard time affording to live in the county I have lived in my whole life, and I would really have loved to have stayed here. Despite having my master's, in my search to buy a home, I was constantly outbid by higher incomes and two-earner households. Owning my own home seemed like an impossible dream for several years. I am happy to share, however, that in July, I was able to move into a home of my own. I feel very blessed to have been able to purchase one of the Annapolis City Parkside Preserve MPDU homes. Being independent has felt like I'm not a burden anymore. I could have been independent several years earlier had the entire county had the MPDU program. I got a certificate that qualified me to buy an MPDU home in 2017, but there just weren't any available units to buy. I visited a number of new developments that were in Annapolis, but outside the city limits. And as they were being built, the construction company representatives told me that they were not required to build affordable homes, so they just didn't do it. I also went to 3 developments that were in Annapolis City, and they had all paid the in lieu of fee. So I would prefer that to go away. I was able to live in a home with my parents and save for down payment. This is so important because home ownership is a key way for families to build generational wealth in our country. And this is one of the ways that the wealth gap between white and black families keeps growing. We must have this program. Start it now, fix the kinks later. Thank you.
Thank you all. Please return to your seat. Are there any additional members that would like to speak on Bill 7823? Please come up at this time. Otherwise, we will close the public hearing on Bill 7823. I see 2 people moving. After them, we will close the public hearing on 7823. All right, this is the last panel, and we will close the public hearing. Sir, please, 2 minutes, name and address for the record.
Thank you. Jeff Hills, Emerson Place in Severna Park. For the last 15 years, I've worked in the affordable housing arena. I support the bill and what it wants to achieve. One of the only amendments I would, or suggestions to look at, is the percentage of land that the county has that this would be actually work in. I believe right now it's under 5% of the current possible developments. So that would actually, with all of what this could do, the reality is that there's not enough land to actually have a real impact. So I think that needs to be addressed. If it's not in this bill, it has to be done in some way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
My name is Kinley Bray. I'm with the law firm of YVS Law in Annapolis, but I'm not here tonight on behalf of any client. I'm here to offer my thoughts on the bill and my personal experience working with the real estate development community to adapt to a similar requirement in Washington, D.C., where I practiced it for a decade before transitioning to my law practice to Anne Arundel County, where I live. I support affordable housing initiatives, but as this is one of the last jurisdictions in the region to adopt MPDU legislation, we should learn from the mistakes of our neighbors. MPDU is not a one-size-fits-all proposition, and without other initiatives will result in an overall decrease in supply of housing. DC is just about as different a jurisdiction from Anne Arundel as you can get. It's mostly urban, densely populated, has a local scheme that regulates density in a totally different way. But that MPDU scheme that was adopted is almost identical to the MPDU proposal that is in this bill. DC's now delivered a significant number of IZ units, but it's taken 15 years, several lawsuits, a massive amount of development opportunities, new density, and real skin in the game from the government to get there. DC had a 3-year lead time before the effective date. This bill proposes roughly 6 months. By OPZ's own admission, the median yield in Anne Arundel County is 70 to 85% of permitted density under our existing zoning. There's no way to achieve anything above maximum permitted density as proposed without flexibility on things like open area, rec area, and other exactions that apply here. DC's program has been amended several times in the ensuing years to resolve some, but not all, of the challenges that delayed delivery of IZ units until 2015. But in a jurisdiction that issued over 7,700 residential building permits in 2022, it delivered 380 IZ units, less than 4% of all residential units. If a jurisdiction that has the density availability of Washington, D.C. is delivering less than 4% of its units as affordable, what are we looking at in Anne Arundel County? The projections for this bill are on the order of 195 to 220 units per year, yet we issued only 1,800 building permits. That can't be rooted in reality. I support affordable housing. It's a noble goal. It starts with supply. MPDUs can be a useful tool, should be a tool for creating affordable housing, but it can't be the primary tool. You have at your disposal an entire industry of residential development experts willing to sit down at the table to discuss solutions that would improve affordability, including new zones, new housing forms, and density, critical to solving our housing crisis. I urge you to take the time to approach this in a holistic way. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson.
Julie Johnson, P.O. Box 6634, Annapolis. I want to thank the people who have come tonight, who have spent a lot of time, not just tonight, not just last Friday, but over an extended period of time, really trying to get to the heart of all of the issues. And I want to thank them for the really, really good testimony that they have provided to all of us to help us have a better understanding of what are some of the best choices. And now I'm going to take on my very unpopular hat of playing the skunk in the perfume parlor, because I want to make a mention about some of the other problems. The federal government does a lot to support the building industry and the financing industries and all of these things. The fastest growing lobbyist group in DC are the people who are trying to glom onto every bit of land that's out there and build rental properties. Rental properties can be affordable, but they will not really attack the issue and the problem of home ownership and the intergenerational, or in my opinion, they need to do a much better job. And one event, back in 2007 or 8, when the housing market was collapsing, there were some very nice and very well-dressed gentlemen who came and said, "Oh, please, you've got to give us some breaks on, the impact fees and this, that, and the other thing, because we're just not making it." And my testimony that they did not like was, I said, "But you're the guys who have gutted the market with $600,000 and $800,000 homes that most of us can't begin to afford. You need to look at who your market is." And this again comes in where, we got some other people who share some of my ideas. You got to demand that builders, provide a reasonable percentage of what they sell at affordable prices and in comparably good condition. I could talk more, but I'm out of 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you all. So the public hearing on Bill number 7823 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 7823.
Bill number 7823, an ordinance concerning finance, taxation, and budget, subdivision and development, zoning, Essential Worker Housing Access Act of 2023.
All right. Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 1.
Amendment number 1. This amendment clarifies the 1% fee is assessed based on the purchase price of all units in the development and not solely the purchase price of each unit.
All right. Mr. Barron.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment came from the discussions of the work session, just trying to provide clarity and ensure that everybody understands that the bill does what we intended it to do as it relates to the fee.
Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved, Allison Pickard.
All right. Is there a second?
Rodvian, second.
Okay. Any questions from the council? All right. Why was there confusion on of each unit and substitute of all units in the development? Why did that come up as a concern?
Honestly, I can't remember which council member raised it, but it did come up during the work session, just ensuring that, does anybody at the table remember? I should look to Aaron when I have these kinds of questions.
I'm sorry, I don't remember which council person raised the issue, but there was some confusion around whether or not it was applying the 1% fee to all units in the development or just the MPDU units.
Check. Okay. I get it. All right. Any additional questions from the council? All right. Seeing no lights, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on amendment number 1.
Ms. Rodvian. Aye. Ms. Ledbetter. Nay. Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Nay.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Nay.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
4 in the affirmative, 3 in the negative. Amendment number 1 has been adopted.
Please read amendment number 2.
Amendment number 2. This amendment clarifies that County Board of Education employees are eligible to purchase or rent moderately priced dwelling units, and the same are eligible for income requirement adjustments under certain circumstances.
All right. Mr. Barron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When the administration drafted this legislation, we intended it to capture all AACPS employees. Will take responsibility for missing a little the words there, and so this amendment corrects it to ensure that if you are an AACPS employee, you would be treated like we're doing for county employees. The language in the original bill, I think, used the word teacher, and we wanted to capture everybody involved in the education.
And just to be clear, the motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt, Allison Pickard.
All right. Is there a second?
Rodvian, second.
And just to be clear, the library person, they're a county employee, so that, I think someone raised a concern earlier.
I'm going to ask Office of Law, because if they are employees of the board of the library.
Right. Lori Blair, Class 1, Deputy County Attorney. They are not county employees.
Interesting. But I didn't realize that.
They're not.
Huh. Been on the council for, didn't realize that they were, okay, that's a new one. But how would we capture them? Just with another amendment?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. But they also apply if they work in the county for 1 year. That also applies. That captures them too, right? So if they work in the county for 1 year, no matter what organization or entity, they would still be able to apply for this.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Wow, I see a bunch of different lights. I guess I'll start with Madam Vice Chair and then work my way to the right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I plan to support this amendment, but I think this council needs to do some serious soul searching on the economic development impacts of eligibility here, and we might need to come back with a broader amendment that just captures everyone we're meaning to capture with this bill.
Echo what Ms. Pickard just said. I'm going to support this tonight, but from feedback we've received, and as we look into this deeper, I think if we want to capture all of our essential workers, that this is limiting to too many people. As Mr. Smith just asked, it doesn't include our library workers. It doesn't include our community college. It doesn't include our nurses and others. And so I do think this is something we need to look at more broadly after tonight to make this an even more capturing provision of this bill.
I had my light on and they said what I said, what I was going to say. So,
All right, seeing no additional lights, please call the roll.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 2 has been adopted.
Please read amendment number 3.
Amendment number 3, this amendment modifies the provisions for continued eligibility for rental of moderately priced dwelling units.
Mr. Barron?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is another piece of the discussion that came out of the work session. If you go to page 12, on the, and this actually was brought up in some of the public testimony about how we are qualifying people as they renew and renew their lease and as their income changes and what the responsibility of the landlord is. So this applies to rental units. What this language does, and I should probably just turn it over to Aaron to explain it a little better, but we are mirroring other language that has been used for LIHTC projects for when tenants develop additional income, giving them a runway so that you're not forcing people out. And this does remove the provision that required the landlord to use a market rate unit to supplement the moderately priced unit. So we heard some feedback on that and thought this was to mirror other affordable housing provisions. This would be the better way to go. So I'm going to ask Aaron.
Is motion to adopt before they go down that path?
Motion to adopt, Allison.
Is there a second?
Rodvian second.
Go ahead.
Aaron, if I didn't hit anything, or you want to add anything?
I think you covered it well.
Yeah, and I actually remember bringing this concern up as well. So this, and I think this answers someone from the table, and God, what was his name you said earlier? Marston, whoever. It was the older gentleman there at the end. He raised it, but essentially, my concern was, well, what happens if they're in the unit, they get promoted or their income increases? Do they just get kicked out? And so this provides a language that allows them to finish the term of that lease and be given the opportunity to sort of either rent a market rate apartment in that complex or find some other dwelling if their income increases over that. Is it the 120?
Yeah. So this gives you a little bit of extra buffer.
Check.
So so you can prepare to move into the market rate units.
Right.
I just wanted to correct. I think it was Mr. Mazer.
Okay.
Anyone want to confirm?
I think that's what, I think it
Whoever
was.
it was, thank you for raising that issue.
All right. All right. Any additional questions on amendment number 3? All right. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Nay.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Nay.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Nay.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
4 in the affirmative, 3 in the negative. Amendment number 3 has been adopted.
Please read amendment number 4.
Amendment number 4. This amendment provides that certain applications and permits filed before July 1st, 2024 are governed by the law as it existed prior to July 1st, 2024.
Ms. Pickard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is sort of standard operating procedure of the council, going back a good ways, making sure that when we have major impactful change to our land use code, that projects that are already in the pipeline or underway are grandfathered into the process. We've done this many, many times, should not be a surprise to the administration. Motion to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Barron?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilwoman Pickard is correct. This was not a surprise. The administration did make a active choice, though, in how we provided the runway. We prefer the language in the bill. We think the July 1st date and the approval language is the better way to go. So we'd ask you to reject this amendment, but we understand where the council's coming from.
Check. And just to piggyback on that, my only concern, not necessarily with the amendment, but if a homeowner who comes to our county government to request a deck, and it takes 6, 7, 8 months to go through an approval process to get approved, because this language is specifically, not this one, but in the current bill, you mentioned the approval piece of it. I'm all about the fairness doctrine. Is it fair to hold someone's process up because we, as a county government, aren't efficient when it comes to expediting and/or processing permits? I'm not throwing shade at anyone at this table. I know, I see your eye. She's looking at me. Hey, don't you say anything bad about my planning and zoning, my baby. But my thing is that's another thing that we also may want to address. And so is it if someone's went through the process, they submitted it, and then all of a sudden we say, yeah, I know you submitted it, but we're going to pull it back, and because now the government gets to control it for the next 6, 7, 8 months. That part, I wasn't necessarily. I mean, I was a little bit concerned with. So I totally understand where the sponsor of this amendment was coming from. We kind of shared those same concerns. But any additional, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we were talking about the estimated units brought on by this bill. If this grandfathering amendment passes, is there an estimate on how many units would not be achieved?
That's a good question, Councilwoman. We don't have an estimate. I mean, what you would just push back is when those units would start to come online, right? And you would imagine that with the passage of an amendment like this, there might be a little bit of a bull rush to get some applications in. So some projects that might be a year or two out in the glint of a developer's eye, you see an application go in just to sneak under the wire, as they would say. But no, I don't think, just as we don't have a crystal ball, we can't give you a good number here.
Thank you.
All right. Any additional comments? Please call the roll.
Ms. Rodvian?
Nay.
Ms. Ledbetter?
Nay.
Ms. Pickard?
Aye.
Mr. Volkey?
Nay.
Ms. Hummer?
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler?
Nay.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
3 in the affirmative, 4 in the negative. Amendment number 4 has been defeated.
All right. Please read amendment number 5.
Amendment number 5, this amendment increases the number of moderately priced dwelling units that a regulated development must offer for sale from 10% to 15% and increases the authorized density bonus from 10% to 15% above the maximum permitted density for sale units.
Ms. Ravia.
Thank you. I think the description that Ms. Corby just read hopefully accurately describes exactly what this will do. It's relatively straightforward. Just bumps up the threshold for the percentage of sale units that a new residential development would be required to contain. So moving it from 10% to 15%, but also allowing the density bonus to go up to 15% as well. I ask for your support and I move to adopt.
Is there a second? Mr. Barron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank the Councilwoman for bringing this forward. I think you heard testimony from a lot of folks. There's a lot of need here in the county for these types of units. The administration heard and looked very carefully at the levels that we set. We picked the levels that we thought were feasible, that would work with what the industry's demands were, and still provide units. We would love to see more. At the end of the day, though, this is a policy choice for the council, and so we would leave it in your hands.
Interesting. Any, Madam Vice Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The administration provided some information about the average net yield to this council. Can y'all describe a little bit about currently how development practices are yielding units in each of our residential? It's far with a cursory look going down R1 all the way through town centers. It appears, for the most part, we only achieve about 60 to 70% of allowable density currently. So I appreciate the thought of increasing the density bonus here while also increasing the MPDU mandate. But we know, based on current regulation, oversight, zoning, we're probably not going to reach the 10% density bonus ever.
So I guess that's my turn to talk, right? Thank you for the question, Councilwoman Pickard. Yes, the administration did provide a look at it, and I'm going to ask Planning and Zoning to sort of talk through that. I think Lynn Miller is probably best equipped to take that on as our resident expert.
Sure. Yes, Councilwoman Pickard, I would say, I think you said 60 to 70%. I think our yields can range usually anywhere from around 60 to 80%. It depends on things like whether the property is on public sewer or not, whether it's in the critical area or other parts of the code that affect the density. But in general, you know, our R1 is, and based on data over the last 5 years, our R1 district is yielding around 0.8 per acre, R2 about 1.8 per acre, R5 3.3. So it seems like it's ranging 60 to 80%, probably closer to between 70 and 80% in general.
Thank you. So looking to try to achieve 115% of maximum allowable density across our zoning districts is going to be a pretty hard pass without some relief, commensurate relief on some of the other bulk regulations or lot size minimums or things like that. We haven't really had an opportunity to speak much other than direct correlation to amendments. It's funny, 5 years ago today, some of us were elected to our roles here, 2018, November 6, 2018. So it's kind of funny that we're at that anniversary. We've had a lot of opportunity and done some amazing work in this affordable housing space and fair housing space. This bill is another possible tool in the toolbox. I want to make sure that as we go through, as Mr. Chairman has talked about earlier today, making the sausage, as they say, that we are honest and transparent with what it's going to take to increase the housing supply. Let's talk about that. Let's increase the housing supply across the county, not just in North and West County, but let's increase the housing supply and therefore the opportunity in all parts of this county. So I'm hoping over the course of the next few meetings that we're going to get to potentially a really strong housing policy that will increase the housing supply, not just in Glen Burnie, where 40% of all multifamily in the county exists, but in other communities of opportunity I look forward to the conversation. There was tremendous testimony tonight about the affordability issue. But this bill is about moderately priced dwelling units, and a density bonus is part of the incentive that is used in those 700 jurisdictions across the country, and it needs to be achievable. So I hope we'll be able to make that happen through amending this bill. I look forward to working with the administration and seeing if we can get this bill to a place that actually increases the housing supply in Anne Arundel County. I don't support this amendment as drafted, but hopefully there'll be some opportunities to continue working together. It's going to be fun.
Ms. Ravia?
Thank you. I just really find it difficult to somehow think that District 6 is not increasing its housing supply. Anyone who drives down Riva Road sees our absolute increase in housing supplies. We have 800 units that will be coming online in the next couple years. If we had passed this bill some time ago, 80 to 120 of those units would be moderately priced dwelling units. So there's still lots to be redeveloped in District 6. And so the idea that somehow this is limited to just, two parts of the county, I think is a little disingenuous. That said, if this isn't the amendment that my colleagues would like, I do believe that, one of the pieces of feedback that I think is both helpful from the perspective of creating additional housing, as well as to make the math work for builders, is increasing the density bonus. That's something I've heard more than once. This is an attempt to do that. If this doesn't hit the mark, let's please try again. But I still hope you will support it because I think it does.
Any additional comments? Seeing no lights, please call the roll.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Nay.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Nay.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
5 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative. Amendment number 5 has been adopted.
Please read amendment number 6.
Amendment number 6. This amendment increases the fee in lieu of offering a moderately priced dwelling unit that certain developers must pay from 1% to 3% of the purchase price of all units in the development.
Once again, sorry, I jumped
Ms.
right in.
Ravia?
Yep, this is my amendment. So once again, I think the explanation that Ms. Corby just read is really straightforward, that just in that window where there isn't, where it's not mandated to provide MPDUs, this just ups the fee in lieu in line with other jurisdictions that have fee in lieus to 3%. So I think if other jurisdictions can do it, we can do it too. So I ask for your support and I move amendment number 6.
Is there a second? Mr. Vera?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I think sort of similar to the previous amendment, the administration would reiterate much of those points. We took a long time to look at sort of as we're bringing on the first MPDU law in this county's history to bring forward something that we believe would work and would be fair. And so we picked those numbers carefully. But at the end of the day, where this council decides to turn those knobs is sort of up to you. I mean, like Ms. Rodvian said, a 3% fee is not out of bounds for other jurisdictions. We picked a slightly lower one, and happy to answer any further questions. But I think at the end, this would be a decision up for the council.
Any additional comments from the council? All right, call the roll.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Nay.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Nay.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Nay.
4 in the affirmative, 3 in the negative. Amendment number 6 has been adopted.
And with that, I will withdraw amendment number 7, which was the alternative in case we didn't. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't see it here.
No, we didn't put it out.
Okay, perfect. So actually, with that said, though, after the conversation that I've heard from testimony and additional comments, I would like to withdraw Amendment 7.
Interesting. All right. So bill number, is that the last amendment? Okay. Bill number 7823 will be heard again on November 20th. All right. Is there any other business to be brought before the county council at this time? Ms. Ravian.
Thank you. I just really would like to say thank you to all the folks that showed up today and encourage you to come back in 2 weeks, November 20th, because we need your attention and your input. Thank you.
All right. May I have a motion to adjourn? All right. Is there a second?
Ledbetter, second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The county council is adjourned until November 14th, 2023. Is that the work session? All right. Yes.